all the time. There's not a lot of love there. There's not a lot of community there. So it might not even be a place sometimes. It might be some people that you are around. It might be something that you're carrying with you in some ways, right? And so it forced me to think about this idea of home. And I think even more so in this last year, when a lot of us have had to be sheltering at home. I mean, no one in Atlanta did this because we apparently didn't think the virus was real. But regardless, the idea though was, to shelter at home. I think we did it for like a week and a half. But regardless, a lot of people, they couldn't wrestle. They had to wrestle with that, like staying in that place. And I think that it's really important for us to examine where it is that we find community, where it is that we find belonging. And so this piece deals with this idea of houseless, and I say houseless individuals because just because you do not have a place of residence or a covering over your place does not mean that you are without a home. So that is my family ties moral session, sha-na-na-na, all of that. And I think we're going to try to figure out this next song. Cool?
Cameras rolling. Second song, take one.
Feels good. The nameless and the faceless. As it may, home of the castaway, the city whispers, we fast and pray. A sinner Saturday, the saints of the latter day. From the fabulous fox, we're like a block away. Portland and Pine, where misfortunes align. The great disparity between your portion and mine. Such a morbid design, but of course with the time that passes, it has to start warping our mind. This familiar ugly, the foreign beauty. Amidst these red line neighborhoods, you'll find a ruby. There is hidden gems in plain sight. In this vicious world, Rufus Wainwright, limboing the poverty line. Your life can become a crime. Panhandle for dollar signs. Feeding me can get you fined. Medicaid with free base, dank, or some kind of wine. Missing rungs on that ladder to success that they want us to find. Because foxes have holes, birds have nests. The Son of Man has no place where he can rest. Foxes have holes, birds have nests. The Son of Man has no place where he can rest. Yeah, foxes have holes, birds have nests. The Son of Man has no place where he can rest. Foxes have holes and birds have nests. The Son of Man, yeah. Oh yeah. I don't do handouts, I do not carry cash. I'll get you next time, this is all I have. Although the signs to help, they ring hella hollow. A hungry belly with only pride to swallow. Pebbles on the street, pressures on my cheek. Today's newspaper served as the night's bed sheet. I'm trying to make ends meet, locked in a dead heat. A survival begin, I'm racing with these lead feet. But it is just as well, the streets of Pratt and Bell. Prior to heaven, but after hell, poverty's paradise, the vagrant Valhalla, somewhere between the Inshallah and the Our Father. The park is my kitchen, my living room's a bridge, my bed is a bench, and the trash can is my fridge. Midtown, 4th Ward, Southwest, too strong. The scabs of the city have been picked at for too long. homes, birds have nests. The son of man has no place where he can rest. Foxes have homes, birds have nests. The son of man has no place where he can rest. I'm like foxes have homes and birds have nests. The son of man has no place where he can rest. Foxes have homes, birds have nests. The son of man. The poverty-stricken, the inadequate, the indigent, the hapless, the penniless, the destitute. The only difference is these guys rock a tie and suit, corporate camouflage, the three-car garage, the McMansion expansion, the opulent mirage, the 5 bedrooms, curb appeal, class struggle. The economy will commonly burst your housing bubble. Suburban sprawl and gaudy high-rises, lock in the mortgage rate for they increase the prices, empty developments and vacant subdivisions. CeeLo told you that that gate could become a prison. Listen, nothing's wrong if you and yours went along. When the castle becomes a hassle, that's where your heart is drawn. A house ain't a home. Watch the bank foreclose on you, it's so true. A roof can actually expose you. Birds have nests. The son of man has no place where he can rest. Foxes have homes. Birds have nests. The son of man has no place where he can rest. I'm like foxes have homes. Birds have nests. The son of man has no place where he can rest. I'm like foxes have homes and birds have nests. The son of man has no place where he can rest. Where he can rest. You wanna rest. Everybody wants to rest. Go in Chicago.
Cut.
There it is. So yeah, this last song, thank you guys for rocking with us. This last song is called Pockets. It actually had a very serious meaning in the beginning, and then it's still serious because the groove is serious. Ain't nothing wrong with that. But it started out with this idea of, I remember reading about when Dr. King was killed in '68. It is said that in his pocket he had a sermon he was planning on giving. Which is called, it's like, why America is damned, or something like that. And I always thought that was, like, really profound, like, the things that are left in our pockets when we leave this earth. It said that even Basquiat, when he was found overdosed and killed, it said he had tickets to see Run DMC in his pocket. I just think it's kind of profound, the idea of what we carry with us, what we take out, what we let go. And playing along with the musical phrase of staying in the pocket, staying in the groove, getting out of pocket when someone act real ridiculous, all of that. So the name of this song is called Pockets. I brought up the good homie Josiah. Give a round of applause for this dapper individual. Josiah saw John Good and was like, challenge. Have y'all have an ascot off. Yeah, anyway, we're gonna get into this last song with this incredibly talented band and see how this goes. Never did this before, so we'll see how this goes. It's called Pockets. Without me, decide.
What you looking for, why you need to reach it? Could you please help out for me, yeah? Keep your eyes on your own, baby. You be way out of pocket, call them back, I'm just trying to keep my pieces for the window here. Why you always in your room, keep on trying to please you. I'm just trying to keep my pieces for the window here. Always hanging with the dogs, you got all the things.
You can feel the tempo shift, you can feel the highs and lows, even if the plot thickens. Listen, it got giant holes. Ride the road with these bumps. I suppose we'll take the lumps. Just because it's terrible doesn't mean that it's a fun. Given what we know now, ATL else is how Texas through the festival, we can even slow it down. Even verse and chorus, so hard you get it going. United big boys from the ancestors saying to pay it forward. My steps is forward, so whenever I feel cornered, I'm a performer. The symbols crashing like Randy Norwood.
Sound like you on it all.
When you do this, it's the wrong topic.
I know, right?
Check, check, check.
I don't hear me. Hello, mic check. Am I short down there? Mic check 1 2.
Check,
A little
check,
bit, though.
check.
I like to hear.
I know. I like to hear myself. Check, check. That's why I can't call into a show. I be echoing like a mother.
Mic check 1 2.
Let's
There
talk
we
to
go.
this week though.
Mic check 1 2. Yeah, I'm gonna get right there. I just put it on your page.
Check, check, check. The homeless guy.
Uh huh.
You see the thing that happened with the homeless guy?
With the police officer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
She was talking about that. How, I mean, he was mentally ill, but he wouldn't. I mean, he just wouldn't conform. He was just being rigid.
My other folks know it though. Teachers be like, yeah, I'm out. Irish and fake ass sounds. I've been about them raw raps, making drunken strong snaps and bell hooks. No tap, wing and a prayer. Lemon pepper wet, all flat with breath become air. There's a life still beyond that. In all black, dressed in the skin God made me in. Never by apologize for this radiance just in your head. Maybe then you'll realize real yours is just as love. Life is love.
Why you need a reason? Get your kiss, help off from me, yeah. Keep your eyes on your own paper. You be way out of pocket, call them bags on. I'm just trying to keep my peace, but don't need no leader. Why you always in your pulpit, keep on trying to preach? I'm just trying to keep my peace, but don't need no leader. Always think you win it all, you got all the leader.
Check.
I leave people with this piece that I always do as kind of just a goodbye. Doesn't even have to be captured for anything, but it's just to say we only get one chance at this. It's about 1,000,000 ways that could all go wrong. It seems random, but I promise that this plan exists. It's just hard to recognize it till it's almost. And bet that you can rest assured we put our best foot forward from the second that they press record. And I never said that I don't cope with demons, because if you've never questioned your beliefs, you don't believe them. If this isn't how it's supposed to go, I know the feeling, but a wisely chosen spoken word could be potent healing. I hit the stage and I behave in accordance because a labor of love won't always pay for a mortgage. Everybody wants to make a name and a fortune, but what a shame that fame ain't the same as importance. And this is not encouragement, because the only thing certain is work in the dirt and grit. You need to learn this. It may never get better, but it'll hurt worse to quit. You see, if everybody wins, then everybody loses, and no one leaves this field without getting bloody bruises. You play through the storm if the uniform fits. There is a time to call it quits, but this is not it. This is not a fair fight, but the odds can be even, and there will always be a reason as long as you keep breathing. It never hurts worse than the very first hit. There is a time to call it quits, but this is not it. Thank you guys so much for coming out. My name's Adon Dean.
Yo. What? Yo, what's happening, everyone? Hey, what's happening, y'all? It is Tuesday night, and we are right at about on time. You know, usually, but listen, man, seriously, the power just went out down here, man, so it took us a minute to get going. Had to reset everything. I know y'all been listening to music a little bit. Had to get everything reset. You know, we got storms going on down here in Atlanta right now. So, yes, Tuesday nights, Classic Conversations with JT and Low. I am JT. He is Low. I am me. He is he.
What up,
This
though?
is where we be. Look at them bars. Yeah, so we back. And this week, we're going to have a conversation. We're going to actually talk about privilege. White privilege, to be exact. I know a couple of things happened this week that we just not understanding how some people they don't see this privilege that's given to another race over our race. I don't understand how they don't see it. You know, we could go all the way back. We can keep going back to talk about certain incidences that happened. Same thing that happened to a person or somebody of another race, and then it happened here.
I'm laughing at you.
I know.
You over there measuring the junk out.
Hey, we tripping because our engineer.
Y'all went in or something?
Our engineer's measuring drinks, y'all. I think he was at Applebee's or something. But yeah, you know, basically what we want to talk about is, you know, things that happen to two people of the same stature, but one is of the black race, one is of the white race, but the reactions and also the conditions of the punishment just end up being a little different. You know, we could go all the way back to the storming of the Capitol. You know, black people stormed the streets of Atlanta. They didn't storm a building. They stormed the streets of Atlanta. And a lot of them was arrested. A lot of them were tased. A lot of people were pushed. They was prodded. There was all types of stuff. But then we had a mob of the other race, the white race, actually take on the Capitol.
Not a capital.
Right.
The United States Capitol.
And they basically got ushered out.
Not state.
And when I say ushered out, I'm talking about stuff like this. Just this way, folks. This way. You know, walk this way. You know, that type of thing.
Taking selfies with
I'm about to say pose for the
Right.
camera first.
Right. Taking selfies and everything. And, you know, the funniest thing about that is, I ain't gonna say the funniest thing, but one of the crazy things about that is all of those people that did get arrested because of all the camera work really hadn't heard anything about them being sentenced or anything, have you?
They've been arresting them. I haven't none of them have gone to trial yet, but they have.
It's gonna take a while.
Yeah, but they have arrested quite a few of them. You know.
Well, I think they had to because so many people had their phones going, and so there was so
Correct.
many cameras, and so many people kind of hacked into the video surveillance of the Capitol and was able to see the stuff that was happening. So they had to do
What's
something.
gonna be interesting is what the actual charges are.
And the people that weren't charged that are on the video. See, nobody's looking at the video, but, you know. 'Cause there's a lot. And see, that's just it. They want to portray things like it was PYTs, poor white trash, and underclass, and rednecks, and never-do-wells, and racist zealots. No, a lot of those were just regular run, middle class, some rich. It was, you know, it was more of mainstream America. It wasn't the outcasts.
That's correct.
That's how it was portrayed and continues to be portrayed.
That's correct. Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
Well-
that's a fact. Go ahead.
One of the things that brought this, well, of course, it didn't just bring it to our attention, but the whole, we go into a sports analogy here now. So all of you that's not into sports, just bear with us because we're going to come back to you. But Aaron Rodgers, NFL quarterback, he is a millionaire, 100 millionaire, as a matter of fact. He's pretty much the leader of his football team. He asked for a trade. We had another quarterback, Deshaun Watson, that asked for a trade a couple of months ago. 100 millionaire quarterback. He is the face of the franchise. Like I said, pretty much the same stature type thing. One of the quarterbacks was actually applauded, saying that he's given everything that he can to the franchise and that the franchise did him wrong by drafting another quarterback. So for him asking to leave, it was cool. The other quarterback was pretty much told to shut up and be thankful for what you have.
You make too much money to be arguing.
And you know, just you already make enough money, so just play football.
Shut up and play football.
I see again, this is two people in the same stature, asked for the same thing, and the public ridicule that came
There you go.
for
That's the key word right
was
there.
crazy. But then the other quarterback, don't get me wrong, there was some people that ridiculed him too. But overall, he got praise.
It was justified. They're justifying Aaron asking for it, saying how wrong he was and how the ownership should have talked to him. But with Deshaun, it's how dare you think they should have to talk to you?
Yeah. And to add to that, they made the excuses. The commentators made the excuses for him. Well, they drafted Love.
That's correct.
They did. They talked about everything, and you can go all the way back. Remember the Manning sons?
Oh yeah.
When they got drafted, they refused to go to the team. Imagine if
Eli did.
a black number one, a top 10 pick said, "No, I'm not gonna play if I go to that team."
I refuse.
I refuse. Yeah, that's exact words he used. Yeah,
That's
Yeah,
correct.
yeah. Now you're right. Imagine, forget a black quarterback, a black player that's drafted number one,
And
say, I am not going to play for that team.
Hey,
John Elway did it too.
John Elway did it as well.
Man, I wish one of us would do it. But at the same time, I don't, because I don't want to mess up his money. But at the same time, I really do.
But it was just amazing how they, when we talked about this earlier, it's just when I watch, and I'm an avid sports person. Y'all know that I watch sports show after sports show after sports show, and I've been watching and listening diligently these last couple of weeks to hear the different responses from some of these broadcasters, from Deshaun's requesting for a trade to Aaron's, and it's almost identical situation. Deshaun felt disrespected because the ownership traded his number one receiver without so much as a conversation. Never even had a conversation. He found out about the old boy being traded the same way everybody else found out. You know what I'm saying? Via social
Arguably
media.
the best wide receiver in the game,
In the game.
not just a number one wide receiver
Right.
on the team.
No, that's a true story. You know what I mean? And trade him without as much of a conversation. And then they tell this man, just a quick backdrop, that, going forward, we'll communicate XYZ with you to include the hiring of the next head coach and general manager. Well, they didn't. They hired a general manager without a conversation. And that's when the man said, okay, so y'all just don't respect me at all. Aaron is asking for the general manager to be fired.
Yeah.
That's the latest statement. He said he wants the general manager fired. Now, imagine that. And they're justifying it. They're justifying. I'm talking about, you name it, Stephen A., Shannon, they all justifying Aaron. It's just, and those are the black guys. We ain't even talking about all the different white, Only person I've heard say anything negative about Aaron thus far is Terry Bradshaw.
Yep, that's it.
Terry said he's weak.
Yeah.
And Terry's doing it from the perspective of you weak to the challenge of Jordan Love being drafted. You know what I mean? Not necessarily weak to the point of, you should ask for a trade. You know what I mean? But just amazing, man. I mean, it's that privilege that is fine, just from the public view, and all the different comments from these, sports commentary folks, man, and how they're not saying nothing negative about them.
Well, and I think too they're not scapegoating. Like take Watson for instance. Eric Bieniemy. Yeah, Bieniemy, the offensive coordinator for Kansas City Chiefs. He just wanted the guy interviewed. Just that's all he wanted to do is interview him. They had already hired the other coach before, and then it's like I think they gave him a courtesy. They said they were going to give him an interview after that, but hell, you've already decided. Who it was, and that's all he was asking. He wasn't asking for anything radical, but I respect Watson from the standpoint that they pitched him to the point where he said, "Hey, I'm a man first," and then he drew a line in the sand, which a lot of athletes won't do. And I mean, you got to respect that. And he wasn't loud and wrong. He was very direct, and they didn't chastise anything that happened. But they ran out before he got it out his mouth good. They said, "Well, they drafted a quarterback," but when Watson did it, nobody pointed out anything that he did. And think about this: if the main thing that the owner did is, it's pretty funny that the owner knows the attorney who's representing all the women that are accusing him. They live in the same neighborhood. Now, coincidences happen, but if you know Houston, you could probably drop Atlanta and Houston, 10, 12 times?
Right.
And it just so happens that the very attorney that works for the owner is representing the very lady that's going to keep him probably in Houston. Because everybody knows it's BS, but nobody's saying this. I shouldn't say it on it.
Yeah.
Not saying it's BS anytime there's any accusation of it, but when there's nothing substantial.
Well, have you noticed that? Go ahead, finish your point.
Well, if you look at it, nobody came out until the last minute, and it's not anybody saying they were raped. There's not anybody saying they were fondled. It was all, if you're getting massages, I've gotten massages, and my towel is dropped. And then you got to look at where a lot of these women work for.
What was it? Drop, MJ?
Yeah.
Right. You say I looked over there. Was it really a drop, or you just didn't pick it up?
I like how I have to end it.
But what you've noticed is the minute that Deshaun's attorney got the judge to approve releasing the names. Have you noticed how silent it's been over the last 2 weeks?
Yeah.
Chirping.
Yeah.
Chirping.
I knew that once.
And two of them so far have already dropped their suit once they had to really. They don't want to reveal their name.
Yeah. And see, the thing is,
it's quiet.
This is what people ain't looking at.
And the thing is, we do not, people, please understand, we are not trying to downplay any type of sexual assault, any type of rape, or anything like that. But the thing about this thing is, once you're accused, the damage is done.
Facts.
So whether or not anybody, white privilege. Hey, white privilege. But unless once it happens, like you said, it's been quiet now. There's been lawsuits, has been dropped, but the damage is done. This guy, it's hard for him to get traded now because of the simple fact, no organization wants to take that.
And he's lost.
Take all that in. You know what I'm saying? So, I was hoping we didn't bring that part up, but I mean, but now that you did, we could talk about the white privilege. Hate to do that to you, Angelo, but the quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers, years and years and years ago, he was accused also.
Yeah. What was he accused of?
I think his was rape, wasn't it? Or was it sexual assault?
And so what was it? No, hold up. Since he's a Pittsburgh fan.
Yeah, I know. Angelo, no.
What was it?
I know it had something to do with a bathroom.
I mean, it was sexual assault and sexual battery was what?
Sexual assault? I thought it was rape. Was it rape?
It was never, quote unquote, rape. It was sexual battery was the highest that it went to.
Did he pay her off?
Well, here's the thing. No, he didn't. Well, I can't say whether he paid her off or not. All right. What I can say is, the case was dropped,
quickly.
and that's all I'm gonna say about that.
I mean, it was
I'm
dropped.
sorry, but I just want to know how many games did he miss? You remember how many games he missed?
He missed 4 games.
Yeah.
He missed 4 games.
But believe me, he wouldn't have missed those games if the NFL didn't already have those rules out there to where they basically had to do something.
That was in the beginning of those rules.
Exactly. Yeah. So they had to
Any
do
other
something.
allegations against him? that
You
know
said
of?
other allegations?
Yeah, against him?
Yeah, I mean there was another one.
Okay.
There was another one.
What was the allegation? I'm just doing want to substantiate there's a difference.
They're different. But we could argue the scenarios, and we could argue
Sexual assault.
his case. We could argue the fact that the female was in the men's bathroom. We could argue the situation behind it, the legitimacy of it. Was it a money trail? We could make that argument.
But can't.
I don't know many women that go into the men's bathroom.
But we can't say that there was some white privilege there, can we? We can't say that there was some white privilege there, right?
We can say there's potentially white privilege there.
And that's what we're talking about here.
Absolutely.
That's what I know. There's some people looking at this show right now going, "Man, is this another sports show?" No, it's not. But it's some of the examples where it's some of the examples where it comes up. But please believe MJ, anytime he gets a chance to rub it into those Steelers, he gonna do it. So he got his chance. So I just let him run with that. The other thing that happened that we saw this week was this kid that was a suspect in a triple murder. I think it was
Triple murder. Yeah.
He was a main suspect in a triple murder. His name was, he was 19 years old. His name was Matthew Bernard. Now, I don't know, but these guys that has these rifles and everything, they look like they're some type of SWAT team or SWAT team or something. The suspect was naked.
Butt booty,
white naked. I mean, he takes off running towards the officers that have the rifles. He's running towards them.
What the officer do?
The officers got up and ran. They retreated the other way. Looking back. They were looking back to make sure the guy didn't get close to him.
Yeah, they did.
Now, he also, as he was doing his, and he wasn't running fast. This dude was jogging. He also choked out somebody at the church. He ran into the church parking lot and somebody tried to stop him, so he choked them out. And he actually was arrested, and I guess you could say without incident, even though he's running around naked. But he was also arrested without incident. Handcuffed, put in the car, taken to jail. Now let's reverse those roles. A fully clothed black man could, you know how you do that little feint when you want to tell somebody to do something? I dare you to do it. I dare you to do it. If they would have done something like that, if they would have just jerked towards a police officer, they'd probably been shot 3 times. Period.
You think that's all it would have took? I think just running at him.
Yeah.
The little crazy jaw he was giving. And what we've seen lately, it don't take much. If you black, that is.
But still, we have people out there. I mean, you read it on social media all the time. These people actually feel that we're being treated equally, that there's no white privilege.
When did Kobe Bryant refuse to play, DC?
Huh?
He said Kobe Bryant refused to play and Ernie Davis refused to play for an NFL team, was traded. I'm not familiar with that story.
Who?
Kobe Bryant just demanded a trade if they didn't get
Maybe I remember refusing to play.
Austin.
Yeah.
Actually, Kobe didn't even demand a trade. I think Kobe just said, I'm going to sign someplace else. I don't even think it was a trade thing with him. Who was that, DC? Mm-hmm. Oh, I can't see his comment. I ain't got my phone set up the right way. But yeah, just imagine, man, if that was a black man that was running around out there naked. How long you think?
You don't have to imagine. We've seen it. We've seen it. We've seen what happened.
County.
You ain't got to imagine. We saw it firsthand. Man was shot and killed. You know, you got to imagine.
So now let me ask y'all this. I thought about this on the way over here. Devil's advocate. And it also made me think of it too when you was talking about Eric Bieniemy. You know, because of the Rooney Rule, where you have to
Interview.
You know.
At least one black.
Interview, you know, some minorities for a position. You know, some of that, I forgot what they call it in the workplace. What do they call it in the workplace? Affirmative action. What do you say to some people that say that that's a privilege that they don't have? Hey. There's people out there right now that feel that that's a privilege that we have that they don't have. Their positions are being taken away because of stuff like that.
And there's some people that really believe that too. That's the amazing part. They really truly believe that.
Now in the NFL or NBA or any of them, NFL, because we're talking about the Rooney Rule, these guys are granted interviews basically to fulfill a stat to say that we did interview a minority. Is that helping, you think?
It hasn't.
I think it has.
It hasn't lately.
Well, I think it still helps because it points out that you have it, but nothing's changed. It points out if you didn't have that, then you wouldn't know if anybody black was getting interviewed at all. Or now that it's mandatory, somebody at least has a chance to get up there. And like when you look at, he's on the Kansas City Chiefs have won how many Super Bowls now?
Just that one.
That one, and they came close to another one. Mm-hmm. And they're probably going to be back there again next year with the drafting that they did. And he didn't even give a shot. And you have some people that have less experience than him. And if you look at Urban Meyer, who's a crackerjack college coach, but can anybody name a college coach other than Pete Carroll, where it's transfer from college to pros actually work? For everyone where it's worked, there's 6 or 7 examples where it didn't work. And then you look at all the coaches that never had a winning record and got a shot at being a head coach, don't even get, they turn around and get a second shot, and some of them a third shot. And a lot of black coaches don't even get a shot.
I mean, it's so much bigger because you got to think about not just those facts you just named, but you got white coaches, such as the Giants head coach, who never was even a position coach.
Right.
Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? He was never a position coach. He was never a coordinator, offensive or defensive coordinator. You know, they put the pressure on the brother saying, okay, you got to be a coordinator. All right? So now you've hired some jokers who became coordinators. The entire Buccaneers staff was black. All of them. Every major position was black and or female, which is thoroughly impressive. You know what I'm saying? But none of them got a head coaching position or an interview. The Bieniemy situation is just beyond belief. Because now they're saying, well, he's not the one really calling the plays. What? What? What's the headphone on in the car? What is he doing with it? You know what I'm saying? Hey, man. And who was it? Was it the Eagles coach? Who was the coach that gave the probably the worst opening interview I ever seen in the Eagles? Oh, I mean, he couldn't even talk.
That was it last week. He told me, like, yeah, me and my players just played paper, scissors, rock, just to see how competitive we are. Like, okay.
So I agree. The Rooney Rule at least puts it out there, but it's not doing anything to get these guys jobs. You know what I mean? It's kind of like like in government contracting. You know, they say, okay, you want a 33% minority, but if you can't find one, just show that you gave a good faith effort.
Yeah,
that's all you gotta do. Just say I gave a good faith effort. I sent out X amount of emails, whatever the case may be. I gave a good faith effort. Now, and that's all you gotta do. And you gonna keep your whole contract.
Now, let me ask you this: have you come up against or have you seen some white privilege? I know you probably can't throw names and everything out there, but in your business, you know, movements and everything, have you seen it? Have you seen, say with your security company, another company?
I've seen in both companies, in both sides of the business. Right. I have a former business partner in the comedy club who, number one, all they had to do was just say a few things about us, and folks believed it, right? Mm-hmm. And we have agencies in LA that flat out will not do business with me
because of what he said,
just because of who he is, because he's white, and they will just flat out just won't do business with you. You know what I'm saying? And I've had it come back to me through other people in the industry, you know, of the reasons, you know, and it's very, 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 very deliberate. You know what I mean? There's no if, no and. You know exactly what it is. You know, and sure, in the security business, you see it all the time. You know, there's white privilege in the business in general, just because. You know, they'll get contracts simply because of who they are. You know what I mean? Simply because of who they are. You can go out to some of their sites and see some of them guards they have, man, they be god awful. You see them. But just because of the name, mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Oh, yeah. So, yeah, you see it on a regular basis, man. On a regular basis.
So see, now what we're trying to do, we're trying to get it closer to home, man. And I'm hoping that somebody will call in and tell us something that's affected them, where they've seen some privilege. I know it's hard for you to talk about your job or whatever.
I mean, MJ was chiming in on some stuff earlier.
Yes, he was.
In the legal system.
In the legal system, man.
I think, and it's something that I think people don't really think about. Some of the stuff you're saying with some of the white privilege, I'd like for you, you know, chime in on some of that.
Before he gets going, 404-500-1605. Please give a telephone call in and, you know, let us know what you've seen or what you felt, what's affected you. You got Zeus on the line? You got him on the video yet? All right, well, hold on, MJ. Let me get my man on. Zeus, you there?
Before you get going, 404-500-1605. Please give a telephone call in. You know, let us know what you've seen and what you felt. What's the
Hey, Zeus, turn your laptop or your TV, whatever you got, turn that down. Because it's a little delay.
Down, okay.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, young man that I have on the phone, man, I met him last year during Atlanta Cigar Week. I was doing media. And the dude is major impressive, has his own cigar business, has his own weapons instruction and safety business. And we were talking, and I'm looking at him, and I, you know, usually don't do that, but I had to do it. I'm like, dude, how old are you? You know, young guy, man. This guy is really, really impressive. My man Zeus, go ahead and introduce yourself. Let everybody know your cigar company and also the name of your weapons instruction company real quick.
Hey, thanks for having me, Jay. My name is Zeus. I'm here because of my brother. I appreciate you having me on the air. CEO of Zeus Instructional here in Atlanta, Georgia. We're a self-defense and firearms training company, as well as 18K Cigars. That is my cigar company. I am also a part of a Cigar Week. Basic. I appreciate you having me, man.
Hey, and dude, wait a minute. You just had a birthday, or was it this week?
It's Thursday. My birthday's on Thursday. Actually, I turned 24 years old.
24.
24 years old. You know what I'm saying? I'm telling you, man, the dude was so impressive to me. I was like, wow. So that means when I interviewed you, you were
23.
Young 23, right? 22, 23. Hey.
Wow. Hey. So, yo, man, when I posted the thing about the privilege thing, you jumped up there and said, hey, man, I want to be in on this conversation. So go ahead and let everybody know, you know, what was on your mind about it.
So what I do on a daily basis is law enforcement. I'm not saying what department I work for, but I've been in law enforcement for about 2.5 years. and I deal with these type of situations each and every day. Maybe not taking towards me, but I've chased down murder suspects, I've chased down some rapists, and some of the things that that just accused doing, and how we handle situations. And I know how those officers handle those situations there. And when you say the comment about white privilege, and in their comments, you have to sit and kind of look at the scenario, what's going on, and say, hey, if this was somebody the same skin color as me, would they have the same right to take the officer around with a rifle in a handgun? So, in the process of this, I took the course of self-defense and use of force like any other officer has. And when I look at this video, there's so many things that they could have done. Now, I do believe the officer is trying to pepper spray him, but at the end of the day, the officer that was running from him, they're about to. He could have, went hands on with him. He could have saved him. There's so many other things that he could have done rather than just around trying to make space. Which also is a tactic that teaches us, hey, you can't physically fight the person, then try to get space with the person as much as far as where it's possible, so you can get yourself set up to where you can, make your own moves. But in that case, if he did have three people, he needs to be in custody ASAP. At that point, he's a felon and he's a risk to the community as well. So even if he wanted to shoot, he was in all right.
I see one of the reasons I wanted to have when he put it up there, again, 23 turning 24. Usually up here on our show, let's face it, we have some old heads up here, and we done seen a whole lot in life. So, we got a lot of stuff that's built up. This man is 23, 24, and he's seen enough to have it built up in him also. And that's why I thought it was refreshing. He was actually going to come up here, but because of the storms that we're having out there, my man is on call. So appreciate that service for sure.
Anytime, man. Anytime. I love to do.
All right, so stay right there. So, because my man MJ has some really powerful things that he was talking about before we got on air, while we was waiting for everything to reboot.
What is white privilege, MJ?
I know I go on the right side a lot when it comes to shootings, but I will harp on one thing because he brought it back up. When the officers retreated, the SWAT officers that had long guns, that's tactical. Believe it or not, it is. Now, the way they did it may not have looked tactical, but when you have a long gun, you don't engage. You don't engage. The person was naked, so you couldn't shoot him. Okay?
I'm not doubting that.
When he runs towards you, if a person gains control, if you have every SWAT guy is going to have it on a lanyard. If I gain control of the top half and the bottom half of that weapon, I can use it to attack you, or I can gain control of the trigger group and actually lead you around with it. If I had one on now and there's a female waitress in here or a weak male waitress in here, he could actually turn me any way he wanted to if he gained control of that weapon. So as far as that go, tactically it's sound. But a SWAT team should have already had, if they knew the guy didn't have clothes on, they should have already had mechanisms in place to deal with that. You may have somebody up with a beanbag gun or something of that nature. I guarantee you, if they would have hit him with a beanbag gun, he would have saw Jesus. But that wasn't even one of the options they do. So again, when you see tactical, just because they got Kevlar from head to toe, it's a level of training that individual SWAT team has. And just because you have a training, and it goes back to what I said about a national academy, a lot of times all people go is to basic SWAT mandate. They don't train. Atlanta police, once again, tooting their horn, and some of the other larger police departments have a SWAT team that full-time, that's all they do, train. And it's, for instance, like that, so you don't have a hasty retreat. They would already had somebody step up, tapping 2 times for beanbag gun or something, and he would have dropped. And then they should have already had an arrest team in place. When the guy's butt naked, they should have that's without twice in the chest with a beanbag gun, he would have dropped in pain, 4 people on him, position him, he's cuffed and out of there.
Now, let me ask you this real quick. I like the beanbag thing. I even like the tasing thing. Why wasn't any of that done?
Well,
the obvious reason that we see.
That's training. That's training.
I don't know, man. I a beanbag hurt, a taser hurt. I think it's white privilege. The reason they didn't beanbag him, the reason they didn't do anything to this guy was simply because he's a white guy. And they weren't afraid of him.
Even though he was a triple murder suspect.
And naked.
What you about to say, Carl?
Go ahead, Zeus.
Okay, so let me ask you guys this: what makes you guys think that the officer in the video is SWAT?
I said that because I just saw that he had a lot of stuff. It just looked like he had a whole bunch of stuff.
I never saw the video, so I was responding to what I was told.
I just saw the guy with a whole bunch of stuff, and it looked like maybe he was SWAT. He had his I'm looking at the video now. Let me go back to the front because I actually think that he was supposed to have been set up almost like a sniper. Hold on.
But go ahead, Zeus. You're trying to make a point?
Oh, yeah, so my point is the gentleman in the video actually is just a regular state, well, we would consider PSP, but he's a state police officer. Yeah, that's all. He has no type of specialized training. Everybody these days is equipped with a long gun, but doesn't mean that you actually know how to use it. It's just pass a 16-hour class, which is pretty much, hey, let me see this target from 25 yards, from 15 yards, and from 7 yards. If we ask you in the class and you know the information. There's a SWAT team would have came in, like you said, a little more tactical. They would have had the options of beanbag, your flashbang, many other things they could have picked them on, but you only have, in the video, I can see two state officers who seem to be very out of shape because he's out here walking out in the woods, which is, that's on their own for training. You can't sit there and run your mouth and not run your gun. And that's one thing I tell my people in my training, don't come to training not prepared. You never know what you're going to deal with. We go on the road each and every day to go out here and, fight crime and respond to these calls. You got to realize, hey, what are you really prepared for? Are you prepared to fight someone in a house when there's only about 2 inches of space, for you to really move around in? Or, if somebody punches you dead in the face, are you prepared to respond to? Most people have never even been punched in the face unless you've been in a fight as well. So the situation is white privilege. You're right. He not only poked somebody on live camera, but right then and there should have been the go ahead for, hey, you know what? Let me up my force. He had somebody else's life in his hands. I can shoot. I can tase. Any of those things. That baton wasn't working on them. That man was on a whole different, mindset. You can obviously see some type of, drugs maybe or anything. See at the end of the video when the SWAT team actually does pull up, they got testy pretty fast.
Yeah, we was just taking a look at the video. Yeah.
Now to lead into law enforcement, and like I said, I dissect every shooting that comes up, and a lot of times, not saying the officer was morally right in what he did. A lot of times you can be legally right or tactically right, or the law covers what you did, and that's not to say if it's right or wrong. It's to say that it was legal. Like this, the 16-year-old that got shot. That was, I won't say a good shoot, but the proper word would be a legal shooting. And most officers put in that same position when a third party's life was in danger, it was justified. Now, where I want to talk about how right. Okay, go ahead, Colin.
I was what you're saying actually.
He just acknowledged
it. Yeah, exactly. But going to where I think white privilege plays into America and law enforcement and the legal system is if you go and, as Sykes can attest to, is the fact that certain areas of a city, when people are incarcerated, it's handled totally different. If you go, even when it was illegal to drink in public in the city of Atlanta, it wasn't enforced in Zone 2 or selectively enforced. Whereas if you're smoking on the corner on Moreland Avenue and you step into the city street, you're liable to get arrested for drinking in public. But you have people walking from bar to bar to bar with alcoholic drinks during a certain time period in Buckhead. And that's part of white privilege. It's also part of social economics, and that plays into it too. A lot of times what we call white privilege is actually rich don't get arrested. The rich get a total different look, like the Kennedy boy with rape that time. He was handled totally different than anybody else, and it wasn't so much race in his account as it was money. But where race definitely plays into it, if you have 5 people locked up on a Saturday night in Buckhead for drinking in public, if it does occur, or drunken disorderly or something of that nature, and the same thing happens in Southwest Atlanta, a lot of times pretrial intervention is used prior to that person even getting up there. The paperwork was already filled out when we used the police on that level. I supervised my last couple of years. I didn't really lock nobody up. I directed. But when I was actually making physical arrests, that happened a lot of times, where you'd go in there with somebody you had just locked up in maybe zone 1, zone 3, or zone 4, and the zone 2 officer steps up with those people, and they're saying, sign here, sign here, sign here. They've already gone into pretrial intervention or something that would keep it from ever showing on their record. And a lot of times they might have an attorney, but a lot of times they didn't even have an attorney. It was just already done by the city solicitor had already handled it. That's where it plays in a lot.
And there was a judge not too long ago. I don't remember what state it was in. It was kid had a bunch of charges, and the judge, said he was too young or had too much going on for him to face those kind of charges. I can't remember what. Sit it on the bench, and it was some major charges, and the judge just pacified him. Just straight up pacified him.
Hey, that comes back to that thing we've always talked about. Voting. The judge that was on the bench that used the N-word, the nigger word, a couple of times, she was able to she resigned, but, how long has she been on the bench overlooking cases, you know what I'm saying? And she had this, vile towards black people. So, and again, when we voting for people, we really don't know them, be honest with you. But,
right.
You still have to really try and study it as best you can, before we start putting these people in office, or before you just say, you know what, I'm just going to mark on the incumbent one and just let it keep rolling. Type of deal.
Well, it plays a big role, and I think that's something in the African American community we don't look at all. The re-election of elected officials, be they black or white, because a lot of black elected officials that get elected time and time again aren't doing anything for us when it comes to putting the right people in place. Look at Paul Howard. Paul Howard was reelected I don't know how many times. And Paul Howard did a lot to undermine African Americans, and everybody ignored it because he was black. And certain things weren't enforced, and I think what's happening now since, what's happening now, people are starting to get off the reservation, so to speak, and they're committing crimes in downtown and zone 2, and now Buckhead is talking about leaving with 46% or 47% of a city's budget.
Right.
And it's because of the crime that's occurring. But when that crime is in zone 1, zone 4, and zone 3, and zone 6, parts of zone 6 in Hardy Street in that area, it was always paid attention to, but nobody cared. It was always keep it out. And anybody that's worked for Atlanta, I'm retired now and no longer affiliated with them, so I can speak freely. Zone 2 is almost always fully staffed. Always fully staffed. Zone 5, downtown area, was almost always fully staffed.
And not just fully staffed, MJ, but I remember they would take, I know during my time, the top people in every academy class were assigned to Zone 2. Like clockwork. The top, I know it was like the class before us, I was 150. I know the class before us and one before that, the top 5 or 6 people in that class all went to Zone 2. One before me went to Zone 2, and our top 6, we were all signed to Zone 2, to Buckhead. You know what I mean? And then after that, they filtered everybody else. After that, but the people top folks in the class.
And then like if you're like in Zone 4, there's certain cars. If you're in Flamingo Road area, or the black 10% area, that B car it always has a person in it.
Always.
And those are little things that's more social economics.
Right.
If you got money, you're going to get the coverage. But where the privilege comes into it, if you look at, and I think this would be a big change if the racial breakdown of a city, they look at every single ticket or arrest that's done in America has to be recorded, and the race of a person, age of a person has to also be included. Because then it would show if you have a town that's 85% white, 15% black, and it doesn't matter how many of the crimes are actually committed by blacks, but at the stops and engagements, look at the color. So if you can say those officers are patrolling in certain areas of the city, if they can see it in a black area, a reason to stop, then they should be able to see the same thing in a white area. And that's where you're going to see that the stops aren't even occurring in certain areas. And that's where the issue comes up. But everybody always wants to jump on the bandwagon of when a felon gets shot by the police and make a big deal out of it. It's a bigger deal when simple victimless crimes like drugs and things of that nature account for such a large percentage of the arrests in certain cities. And then you got to look at the breakdown of incarceration in those same states. So you have a victimless crime, but yet it's accounting for sometimes upwards of 40, 50% of the people in jail. And now if you look at the breakdown of that in most of those states, it's black. So the war on drugs, and everybody knows, everybody in America uses drugs. Everybody in America smokes weed. And when I was actually in narcotics, I made a little snafu. But basically, I had a pretty heated argument with some of my supervisors, and I said we're going to police in all areas. And I think there's no longer narcotics with the city of Atlanta, but during a large period of time when the city of Atlanta was operating, although anybody that partied in Buckhead or whatever, open view saw drugs and things of that nature, but almost 90% of the arrests during the 90s and early 2000s of suspects were black suspects. The only people that were being targeted were African Americans. We had a black leadership, but some of the issues I found in law enforcement, I tried to correct that, and I made a couple snafus, so I was reassigned. But I'll say one of the issues I had with that is the way policing is done, and I've seen it from being on several federal task force, running them, not just being a pea in a pod. The way and the tactics that are used in the areas that we police. Now, granted, a lot of this we bring on ourselves because of the level of violence in our communities. But to not even look at the drug uses taking place in certain parts of America, in certain cities and everything else, that's wrong. Particularly when the jails are getting filled up with African Americans for the same charges, knowing the same things are going down in white areas.
And I was trying to pull it up, man, but my keyboard is a little dead. I don't feel like typing it in letter by letter. But in regards to, like you said, somebody that's arrested with an ounce of weed, black man, compared to somebody, white man, that's arrested with an ounce of weed. Mm-hmm. Now, like you said, people that has the money, they got the different attorneys, whatever, but still the law is the law. Yeah. And attorneys are paid to run tricks. I mean, seriously. Yeah. They run tricks, man, and get people to have just the smallest little bit of doubt, and now all of a sudden the charge is different, which is crazy to me that can happen. Now, would you say that that's because of the class of attorney you have, or do you say, or would you say that that's because of a race thing?
Again, it's selective enforcement. And I can speak freely now. I'm no longer in law enforcement. but it's like there's a total different type of officer who's encouraged to do a total different thing when he works in a black area than the ones that work in Buckhead. Or, and not just saying Buckhead, that would be the upper end of Cascade also. So a lot of it, like I said before, is social economics. It's
Hold on.
not.
For those of you out there that's not from the Atlanta area, Buckhead is like one of the higher end areas of the city of Atlanta. You know, we have some higher ends outside of the city, but basically within Atlanta, Buckhead, when you say Buckhead, your gas price is going to be high. It's that type of deal. So go ahead.
Yeah. In the Cascade area, upper end of Cascade, Flamingo Road, is where I call them the black 10% stay. Blacks with money. Exactly.
I live in that community.
They're over there. But where the issue comes in is a way the areas are patrolled. And the type of person they put in certain B cars, the type of person that if you're coming out of an academy class and you're deemed to be that guy or that aggressive or whatever, you know where you headed. 1, 3, or 4. And the officers that they send it to in the zone 2, it's like you win a lottery because you get the best of everything. Extra jobs, cars, and I understand because that's 46% of the budget. But where the racism part comes into it is when you try to fight crime from a pure arrest standpoint, it drives those numbers. And I was part of that. So I'm not just speaking about what I heard. I was actually part of it. I've been in the meetings. So I see that. But what permeates all through America is that. It's like when I've gone, it's like anybody black that's gone outside of Atlanta or gone to an area in Atlanta and went to an area that's probably more predominantly white. And you go in the store, no matter if you got the credit cards, money in your pocket, no matter what you have on, you may be followed by store security. Right. That's the type of profiling that happens to African American males at a different rate. And I think one thing that, Black Lives Matter and everybody wants to holler every time a felon or somebody committing a crime is shot by police and bark up. Now, it's needed when it's needed, but when you bark up every tree, it dilutes it. So it doesn't carry the same weight. But if people take the time to look at the statistics of what the arrest numbers are for different departments, the feds have to step in a lot. They stepped in with Baltimore, Dallas they've stepped in, different cities where they had issues. Atlanta's never had an issue like that. But there's a lot of cities that does, and the right people don't jump on that. That's something you need to look at. Because now it's showing that if you're African American, you will get stopped at a different rate. And even if it's a legal stop, if you go in a white area and those same stops are not being made. So officers aren't curious or worried about certain crimes in the area where they don't even approach the people. And that's where the issue comes in. And until you start looking at the statistics and people pay attention to what's important, because if somebody before they even get started that can't afford to is being arrested on a misdemeanor charge of marijuana, and now he's taken out of the populace, can't make bonds, so now for 4 to 5 months of his life, how is he going to explain that on a job application? How is he going to pay his car note?
Go ahead, Zeus. You have something?
Yeah, I do have something.
Go ahead.
So I know that policing is a little different now from when you police served. If you were pulling somebody over in zone 3 and when you go over the radio after you ran their tag, what do you usually say when you got the car and when you're ready to identify the person in the vehicle to radio?
What I didn't hear you.
What do you say to the person?
Oh, what he said to the person is, see, that's just it. That part of it is telling me. And see, Atlanta's one of the top departments in the country. So things are, I can't say always, but 90% of the time in Atlanta it's done right. And you're going to use any officer if it's good, it's going to say the same thing to everybody. Where the issue comes in is when you have somebody that won't get the break, or if you're more aggressively ticketing and charging, and it's not done in other areas. Like roadblocks, when they had all these roadblocks that weren't done correctly, I won't use the word illegal, roadblocks that weren't done correctly, they were all in certain parts of the city. I can attest to, and anybody was in Red Dog in the 90s. One time we got a new lieutenant in, who's retired now, Lieutenant Crowder, outstanding man. And we ribbed him up. We said, hey, we're not allowed to go into Buckhead. We can't go to Buckhead. And he says, yes, and if anybody knows him, he's a stand-up guy. We went to Buckhead, and we set him up, but we wanted to do it anyway because we really weren't allowed to go into Buckhead. And we set up a roadblock. At the time, it's a Gold Room now, but it used to be the Gold Club. That street right there, we set a roadblock up down from that. And I kid you not, we stopped 6 cars, we had 6 issues. But the difference was people were actually calling. And by the time we were not 30 minutes into that roadblock, that we were called and told to shut it down.
Shut it down.
And those things are where
That's white privilege.
white privilege. Because we had people with no approved insurance, things of that nature, and they hook them and towing them in certain parts of the city. And those are the things that's policed differently. And I think what'll change policing in America is when you don't use that as your justification to use the crime in a black area to use for those justifications, because anybody that's ever, and that's why they changed a lot, and some areas don't even allow roadblocks, and Atlanta stopped them for a long time because there's so many safeguards and things you have to put into a roadblock. Most of them are illegal. Some of the ones occurring in Clayton County currently. And the lights aren't out there, the cones aren't out there for signs that you're entering a roadblock. And another thing, you're supposed to name the crime or the action that you're looking for that roadblock. You just can't have a catch-all. So
Really?
if it's, I'm looking for Sykes here because he robbed a bank last weekend, I know he's in the area and I set up a roadblock, whatever you're looking for, and you have to have a pattern. You don't supposed to stop everybody. If you're not looking for an individual, you can do it or escapee of that nature. But if not, you're supposed to go every 3rd car, every 4th car. And if 4 people that would fit the normal description of somebody you'd mess with come through, if they're not that 3rd car, you're supposed to let them go. Now, I will say this, the best thing that ever happened to black people, and people don't understand it, are body cams.
Let me just say this real quick. With what you just said, I don't think I've ever been on a legal roadblock, man.
Exactly.
And I've been on
Look, I was about to ask the question. So you telling me that they were supposed to have a specific reason for, if they had a roadblock out there, they're supposed to have a specific reason of what they're looking for.
When the laws changed, yes, and you're talking about the 2000s, you were supposed to name the reason that roadblock is occurring.
Right.
It can't just be for truck to get numbers. And that's what roadblocks, and that's why we've had good chiefs. Chief Turner, Chief Shields, Chief Brian now. Good Lord. They shut them down.
So let me say this, y'all doing that help shape that lieutenant's perspective by like you said,
good
not
question.
being able to go into Buckhead, y'all going into Buckhead, and y'all seeing that.
And how quick it got shut down.
How quick it got shut down, and like you said, the fact that, like you said, these are victimless crimes, but these happen in white areas too. You know what I'm saying? To show, because he was already neutral about it.
Yeah.
But to bring him there and show him, like, hey, I can show you the same thing in zone 1, or I can show you the same thing in zone 3. So
Well, see, what happens in law enforcement, everybody has moments that test their integrity and their intestinal fortitude. Mine occurred that night. It also occurred when we had the first time the Braves won, the NFL, won their division. We had the nation's eyes are on us. So we were told to go to Fulton County, Summerhill neighborhood, and we were supposed to basically do some tight policing in that area. So basically you lock people up that may be out there breaking into cars, or drunks, or derelicts, petty crime. People that typically commit petty crimes, the people you know to be those criminals, those people were arrested on whatever charge you had on them. Nobody was railroaded, nobody was lied on, but we made tight, and drinking in public was one of the things we used. If anybody knows that area, drunks used to hang out in front of that liquor store in different areas. So we did that enforcement, and it went off without a hitch, and everybody was happy. I remember when the Braves won for the first time of going to the World Series. We were sent down to Buckhead because that night that they won, we were sent down to Buckhead. And when we went to Buckhead, we were told a certain individual got on top of a car and told us, it was a deputy chief, got on top of his car and told us, we're down there just in case something kicks off. We're not down here for enforcement. And during the time he was talking, somebody walked by drinking out of a Jack Daniels bottle.
And because y'all weren't down there for enforcement, you just had to let them walk by.
No.
Okay.
I locked that ass up as soon as we got out of that meeting. And I was told by 2 different supervisors who I really respect, but I also respect their response. They told me, didn't you hear, bam, what he said? And I said, yeah, I did. But I looked right at, and they're both stand-up individuals, 2 of my favorite people, supervisors I've ever had. I was also at the time. I looked right at them. I said, this is a legal arrest. And people know me. I said, is this a legal arrest? Is there anything illegal about what I'm doing? It's a city ordinance, correct? I said, you can't tell me, and you cannot. As a supervisor, you can't tell somebody not to make a lawful arrest. I made that arrest. And I can't put her name out there. But a certain officer who was in the wagon that night, I was placed in the wagon for the duration of that detail. And because I wasn't going to stop. Because it made me feel some kind of way.
82 duty.
I locked up everybody black with a swinging habit. Everybody, and I did it for a reason, because we wanted to make sure everybody that came in to Atlanta and was around Fulton County Stadium's cars weren't broken in. But when you're up there and you see people of a different color violating, and there was black people in there too, but it was mostly white in that time period. Okay. And everybody was partying, walking in the middle of the street, drinking alcohol, and we were told it would have been different if he hadn't told me. But you're going to tell me the same individual said lock everybody up with a swinging dick. Now you're telling me not to lock up people. And he didn't say color, so don't even run with that, some of y'all. But it was a fact. It was inferred. Not straight up told, don't lock them up. So at that period when I saw that sea of people and none of them looked like me, I kind of felt, nah, hell no. And do you cross the line? So the first thing I did, I went to that very guy, walked down, and he said, excuse me, what you doing, officer? I said, hands behind your back. And his buddy almost made the mistake and thought about it. That's the difference between them and us people. We do dumb shit, they don't. He didn't put his hands on me because he would have went too. But so I locked that individual up in the reaction. But it was equally distressing how many people just fell in line. People talking about it, but it bothered them. But I respect the 2 sergeants' response. They didn't try to talk to me once I told them why I did it. So things like that shape your career. And, I think that's for everybody. I mean, different people have different levels of what they can and won't do and what they will and won't tolerate. Now, when you get outside of one of the stellar departments, like Atlanta is a kick-ass department. I'm not just saying because I was there for 30 years. But Atlanta, from top to bottom, from all the chiefs I've been under, there's not one of them that wasn't stellar. Look at Chief Shields. She's up in Louisville now. Bryant's either going to be the chief here or he'll go somewhere else.
I got to believe you because every time you're on this show, you always say that Atlanta don't have them problems. You always say it.
No, but you guys got to look at it.
And nobody has called in and refuted it.
Yeah, look at
nobody's called in tripping about it or whatever.
Talk to the streets. Atlanta officers, do people get their ass whooped? Yes. Sometimes is it wrong? Yes, of course. But the majority of the time, white, black, yellow, green, if Atlanta officer puts his hands on you, he's doing it by SOP and doing it correctly. But we've had chiefs. Turner started it, the innovation, and Chief Shield finished it up, and Chief Shield went one step further. The way they implement, I'll be honest with you. When the body cam first came out, I said, oh my God, how are you gonna police? But as soon as a supervisor and you saw how it changed some officers, what I really liked about it is it gave me a way to critique all officers. Not on a brutality charge, but just on a traffic stop in general. And you could pull them in and say, hey man, get out the fatal funnel. And you found out real quick who your better officers were. And like I said, Atlanta's on the cutting edge of it. I think it should be mandatory throughout the United States. And if you do that, you'll see a lot of change. But one thing, and I'll give everybody else time to talk, but this is something I'm passionate about. If we start recording every single traffic stop, every single physical arrest, and putting the color, the charge, the time, the race, and the demographic, and you're already going to know demographics of that city, and you start putting those statistics out there, the cities that are wrong, you're going to know it. You're going to know it.
Yeah.
And when you see that 90% of the enforcement occurs in only certain areas, in other areas where you know these times are occurring, that it's not even enforced, that's why I had the issue when I was in narcotics with Buckhead. They weren't enforcing it in the clubs in Buckhead or Midtown. Now, granted, I'll give you this. The problem we always mess up, they do the same thing we do. White people use drugs probably more than we do. But the issue is we kill each other. They don't. And that's one reason why you will have more crime, more enforcement in black areas. But to not attempt to make those arrests or not to make any arrests, and a lot of them are supplying and making large amounts of money, that's wrong.
Couple of questions for you. First, the Buckhead thing about, and I remember back in 95, 96, Buckhead was pretty much, if you had a cup, you could walk up and down those streets all day having a drink.
Buckhead Village.
It reminded me of Bourbon Street.
Yeah.
It changed, honestly. It changed once we started having certain nights. Certain DJs would go down, certain radio stations would go down to certain clubs. And then when I remember when Shaq had a club down there, a couple people had different clubs down that way, and it kind of changed up then. You said something, and I want to make sure, because I know some people are going to trip on it when they review this thing, in regards to Black Lives Matter and barking up every tree, how it's going to, it weakens it as you keep barking up every tree. Are you saying that we should not protest every one of them? Should we pick which ones we protest, or?
Well, some of it's just obvious. Like Floyd was just wrong on so many levels, and that also got arrested and was dealt with. There was a shooting a couple years back in Atlanta, and see, people don't even talk about it. This is the thing I hate about Black Lives Matter. When you have an occurrence where it's done right, you got to speak up on that. You got to say, hey, look, Atlanta had an officer. Basically, an officer was on his way home. A call comes up. There was a gentleman in a parking, this zone 2, parking deck, committing larcenies, breaking into cars. He puts his gear back in his car. He had made it to the precinct, goes out there. He positions himself, I've talked about this before, positions himself in a way when a person came by, he'd be able to apprehend them. Well, the person came by at a high rate of speed, and he said the person tried to hit him. He fired his gun, fatally striking the individual, and everybody was, oh man, good shoot, good shoot. Now, this is how thorough the Atlanta Police Department is. Not only they looked at the homicide, looked at the camera there's a camera, clearly showed that the gentleman was fleeing and passing him when he fired, or not trying to run him over. So that was the first part he lied. They also went and looked on the officer's social media, and they were actually able to see where he was another officer in his class had gotten the shooting, and officers came forward and talked about how he was about that shooting. He got convicted. He's doing, I think, 20, 25 years. So that happens a lot. And a lot of times there's shootings, and I didn't mean that because you're a felon, you deserve to be killed by police. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is we have to own the fact that when the police got there, most of the police shootings that were called to that location, officers just aren't rolling up on black males and putting them out. What we need to deal with as a people is how we react, and also and how our officers reacting. That's why I'm 100% for pushing for a national police force. a National Police Academy. A National Police Academy will make sure every time somebody's encountered, they'll be handled the same. And when they're not, it'll be a training issue and a disciplinary issue. And when you do that, it's not going to happen overnight, but people will dealt the same way. And you got to realize a lot of people just aren't taught correctly. A lot of people, once they get out of the academy, they go to no more training. That's like a comedian learning how to tell 5 jokes and doesn't change his repertoire, and he tells the same 5 jokes. I don't care how funny they are. After a while, are you going to keep bringing them in your club?
No.
But what's happening in law enforcement, when you look at the people like that commit these heinous crimes and do these heinous things that are in law enforcement, look at their records, just like the clown that killed Floyd. Look at his jacket.
He had too many on.
Exactly. So those are things we should be pushing for as a people. Let's make sure, and not just black, everybody should be pushing for the fact if an officer commits brutality, it's in a national database, third strike, and if it's in a database where every department that hires that officer is going to see it, that's going to bring about change. And to help police the police, make sure you have an independent, the same people that audit that would be the same people that look at the statistics and the stops. And sometimes it's going to be for legit reasons. If you're living in Podunk Town and it's 98% white, but 90% white and 10% black, but that 10% of blacks are living in a poverty level, you got to expect most of the people in those stops are going to be African American. But when it's 100%, that's when you got to start looking at it. That's why the Justice Department, when they put police departments on probation, so to speak, that's one of the things they look at, where they have to actually change your tickets where it shows a race on all arrests. And when they do that, I know Baltimore, there's been a lot of departments. I think Detroit's been on it before. Some departments have been on it numerous times. Then that goes back to filing complaints. Most African Americans, how many times have I asked somebody on this show, did they file a complaint? When they go in this long dissertation about how they were wronged by the police, and what do they all say?
Tell you betting 1,000.
Yeah,
Literally 1,000. And those are going to be brought about change. So I wasn't trying to say Black Lives Matter wasn't being helpful, but they harm themselves when it's something that's 100% legit and should not shock the conscience. People, we got to own up. If you're black and you commit a violent crime and you're confronted by the police and you don't conform, or even if a mistake happens doing that and it results in your death, you put yourself in that situation.
Know better. Sometimes if you know better, you gotta make better decisions.
No, and I agree 100%. I mean, I do think the Black Lives Matter and or those type movements can over.
Half the time it's not even Black Lives Matter.
Yeah,
Honestly.
but a lot of
But
times,
if you let
all the
people
pro.
take your seat
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
speak for you,
Yeah.
then you got to tote that.
Yeah. But there are a lot of protests of things that they shouldn't be protesting. You know what I'm saying? It's like every, and I had this debate all the time with our number one fan, Nita there, on certain situations, because there are certain situations where people think no matter what the scenario is, they still should have been killed. You know what I mean? And it's like, and then sometimes you can say, yeah, but. You know what I mean? And you can say, yeah, but, but a lot of people don't want to hear the yeah, but part. But sometimes the yeah, but part is accurate. It's yeah, but had they did X, Y, Z, this wouldn't have happened. You know what I mean? Had they, I was on DC Curry's podcast last week, and he wanted me to sit in and ask a couple of those same type questions. You know what I mean? And I answered the same way. It's like, there's some scenarios where it is the yeah, but situation. You know what I mean? All of them aren't bad. And I was telling them, on that podcast, I was like, we have this notion that comply is such a dirty word. You know what I mean?
It's not for black people.
Yeah. And it's like I told them, and the same thing I told the young cats on the football podcast, hey, man, are these the things you're going to tell your son? You know what I mean? And then I brought up the fact. I said to them, the same thing you just said. I said, we got this former police officer on our show every week. And I said, every week he asks people in the audience the same question: did you file a complaint? And I said, he batting 1,000. I said, just like we're on Wednesday on DC Curry show, and DC's response was, yeah, but they feel like it ain't gonna do no good. My response to them was, I said, yeah, we said the same thing about the elections.
Exactly.
We said the same thing about the elections.
Yeah,
we said vote don't count.
Yeah.
Vote ain't gonna do no good. I said we cannot have that mentality.
Stacey proved that wrong.
You know what I'm saying? We can't have the mentality of it don't matter. You don't know if it matters until you do it. You don't know, and I can attest. Now, MJ says a lot of good things about the city of Atlanta. I'm not 100% like he is, but I didn't stay 30 years either. You know what I'm saying? Because I had my battles with the city. Yeah. However, I can tell you, the OPS joint, they real. They come, they come down. You file complaints, man, they're gonna investigate that junk. Yeah. OPS in Atlanta, they're gonna investigate it. They're gonna investigate. They're gonna look into it because they looking to the officers. It's like they're looking to get notches on their belt on officer spend. And that DA they finally got rid of, he's never been a police officer's friend. You know what I mean? He'll prosecute like it ain't nobody's business. You know what I mean? That's what he did. You know what I mean? So,
But he was pandering for votes.
Yeah, always.
Because Atlanta became a jobs program. They had never privatized sanitation or, what's another one? Parks and Recreation. They employ all these people would have saved a lot of money if they privatize it. And it doesn't take away jobs because you can require, say if BFI got the City of Atlanta sanitation contract, they would also, you could say, hey, you have to hire any employee that meets your standards. And so the first people that got the jobs, and basically you'd pick up City of Atlanta, BFI would buy all your trucks and hire all your people, and they would just take over. They don't do that because this is what black officials in Atlanta have gotten elected on for years. The fact that they're going to carry the poor vote, they're going to carry the number of city employees that are underpaid, but they're there. They're getting just enough to exist. Now that all the poor areas of Atlanta are being gentrified, and they're not, the people can't afford. I think in Zone 1 now, the average apartments I think is $1,000, and that's the hood. Mm. And so now the very people that vote for him can't afford to be in the city. Exactly.
Which was the goal.
Yeah. And the last couple mayoral races were real close. I'm not going to say if anybody was busting people from Candler Road or anything. But I'm just saying that there was a lot of discrepancies in that. And that's not saying I want to see another mayor. But what I do want to see is that black power structure that was alive and kicking and allowing a lot of things to happen to us as a people needs to be erased and changed. I don't care if it's a white person, a yellow person, a green person, a red person. It needs to change.
Let me ask you something, MJ. Got a question here.
Felicia Moore.
From DC. From DC. And it's funny he asked this question because B. Marsh, Brett had the same type question on his thing the other day, reference to that video. But his question was, police officers have the same thing as lawyers, same training as lawyers. They should have 3 to 4 years of training before they hit the streets.
No.
Before they hit the streets, definitely more than 6 months. Lawyers have to pass the bar or whatever. Police officers have some kind of standard as well. But it was funny because on another site I saw the other day, B. Marsh, who's a white guy, posted something on his thing, and a lot of people they were responding the same way about, teachers having 4 years to teach, and all these professions have so much time in, but police officers don't have to have that kind of time to carry the gun. So what is your thoughts on that, though?
Well, you have to look at the sheer numbers of officers that are required to patrol. You can't put those same constraints when you need to get a gazillion of people. Yeah, you're basically getting bodies, and that's what people have to understand. Atlanta's the highest paid in the state right now. Thank you, Mayor Bottoms. And she looked out for us, and we've had good chiefs that kept us with the top equipment. If this can be put on a police officer, Atlanta also had it way before most jurisdictions had it. But what Black Lives Matter and America's not looking at is the fact that a lot of officers and departments, everybody's in this mistaken assumption everybody has a body cam. And as I spoke about on several shows, the storage of a body cam footage now it's federal laws that cover how long you have to keep it, and the cost of it is cost prohibitive. And a lot of departments that started off with body cams got rid of them. Atlanta doubled down. We got the latest that can track and go back 30 minutes.
But isn't that one of the major problems, though? The fact that, because again, the federal government can do whatever they want to do. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And I just can't imagine why the federal, if the federal government really truly cared about, stopping certain things and these shootings that shouldn't happen, or these crimes, because there's a lot of things that happen that we just simply don't know about.
Mass incarceration is big business in America.
Yeah, but my point is, how do you not mandate that every single police department has body cams? I mean, how is it that you can say, well, we can't afford
it unless you're going to supply it?
But you should. But my point being, the federal government can do whatever they want to do. That's my point.
That would be Biden actually doing something instead of playing lip service. You got to look at, he's been in office. He did two things. He passed a bill that makes it against the federal law.
We gave China $50 billion.
For transvestites, transgenders, and also for Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders. And that's great. It's outstanding. But you got to look at the fact that he hasn't done a bill that would make it illegal to violate the rights of an African American.
Him nor any other president.
Nobody looks at that, but see, Black Lives Matter and that black 10% that have lined their pockets for years and being mayors of black cities, and then I've just called Jackson out now. Jackson and some of the other black leaders we have, they continue to make a fortune and make their living off black suffrage, but the things that's obvious that we can call out on this Paul show, they don't call out, and that's one of them.
So,
but I'm just saying.
So, yeah, I've been saying it for the longest that, my thing was about training, the National Training Center and everything. It kind of comes up under the same umbrella. When people say, well, the funding is not there for it, but just like this man just said, it's the federal government. How is it that you can't make it a mandate that, like you said, everybody that has a badge, I'm almost ready to say, I ain't gonna go with correctional officers because they go through something, because I've been in there, but everyone that has a badge out on these streets should have a body cam as the training part of it. It's the federal government.
And I mean, you got to look at, and this goes back to Reaganomics, and they cut out federal funding for anything dealing with mental health care. Federal funding was cut. And you see what that's done. Anybody that's police will tell you the number of mentally ill people that are incarcerated in America. And that's the direct result of Ronald Reagan cutting out funding for mental health care in the Republican Party. And what the backlash on that, and I know this is going to go good for a lot of you people, but I'll tell you one thing. If we cut out some of the funding to third world nations, I don't care if it's Africa, Asia, Eurasia, or Eastern Bloc countries, if we cut back on a little bit of that funding that we give out to them, and we put it into our own.
Hey, man, again.
If you just take $10 million off each one of those budgets, you can cover body cams, and then just make it a federal agency that takes care of body cam footage.
Period.
Right.
Again, we just gave $50 billion because of the word China virus.
Right.
$50 billion, and they got approved like lickety split. So if there's any real true concern, how in the world can that not be mandated? It's just mind-boggling.
What do you guys think about Tim Scott and Kamala Harris?
Well, Tim Scott's an idiot. Tim Scott is the definition of Uncle Tom.
What's not a racist country?
U.S.
I mean, anybody that says that, I was in law enforcement for 30 years. This is the difference that I have with a lot of people. And a lot of people like that one guy said, "You're a Republican?" I policed and stood shoulder to shoulder for 30 years with white and black officers. Everybody has their prejudices, but I've gone all over the country. I've been all over the state, federal task force. I wasn't no regular desk jockey, SWAT commander, fugitive, FBI ammo task force, Atlanta Metropolitan Major Offenders Task Force, Southeast Regional Fugitive Task Force, supervised.
Hey.
Yeah.
Is America a racist country?
And what I'll say with that is, yes, there's a lot of systemic racism that occurs in America, but you got to realize, and this is where I differ, and you know that because of the way you were raised and where you live. All white people aren't racist.
No. And
but see,
again,
what I'm thinking is,
classic conversations with JT and Lowe, we're talking about things for our community because guess what? It is our community.
And I think
and we are not sitting up here saying that every white man and woman walking is racist. Please understand that part. That's not what we're saying.
Yeah. But I think that America, the way it's set up, and because our leaders, black and white, are refusing to acknowledge things that do occur and put in corrective actions, like I said, a national police force. Okay, how can something be illegal in one state? And think about it, if you literally live on the border. I mean, I used to go hunting in Louisiana and crossed into Mississippi because it's right there. Now imagine you're smoking weed and it's legal in, say, Mississippi. I know it's not. It's legal in Mississippi, and you walk across the street, and that literally happens, and now you're in a state where it's illegal. Or the carrying of a weapon. You have a weapon, every other state allows it, your carry permit to go everywhere, and you get diverted and you land in New York.
Yeah, I'm totally with you on that.
Or you drive because you have a death in the family and you forget and have that weapon in there. Or simple things like Virginia, Gestapo State Patrol, and you have a radar detector.
You're in trouble.
And then you're in trouble.
You're in trouble.
And now how can you go 5 more feet if he caught you at the thing and all of a sudden it's okay? That's where the law of the land should be the law of the land.
Me too.
It should be the law of the land. And things of that nature. That would help if Black Lives Matter chimed in, or if you had real black leaders that dealt with things that affect African Americans. When you have a department that has a arrest rate, Atlanta's not like that, but I know some in the Metro Atlanta area that are kind of.
So I'm with you now.
And it's not dealt with.
So basically, what you're saying is there's more to it than just protesting the wrongful deaths.
Exactly, because it's such. Now, I'm not diminishing anybody's death, but I'm here to tell you, if you take the African Americans that were killed by police, and then you take all the black males that have a felony now on a victimless crime, and you act what impact that has on African American culture and African Americans, those black lives don't matter. The loss were lost. You know what matters is a black college kid, and he has a friend that lives in the hood, and he brought 2 of his college buddies, who just happen to be black also, and they're walking down the street, and the one boy that's still in the hood sees a police approach, and they all stop, and he throws down 15 hits of crack. Because of wingspan and laws like that, all 4 of them can go for a felony.
Yeah.
That's the type of things that affect African Americans when you look at the number of, and that's when the statistics, and if you have it where it's mandated that you track all this, then you'll see if an officer is in an area that's 50-50 black and white, but 99.9% of his stops are black men.
You know something real quick, man. You know something's funny when you said something like that, right? I do be careful how I say this, but you know, we have contracts with certain other companies, predominantly white companies. But there was a gentleman that we're going through background checks. And, you know, now you gotta do all your background checks through all your employees, especially in security.
Yeah.
And so we're debating some of the people You know, some of them had misdemeanors, real small. Some of them were 10, 15 years old misdemeanors. You know what I mean? And back then they didn't hire anybody with any type of arrest. Period. No matter how big or small. And so I was like, hey, man, I said, do you realize I was just questioning about why you do this. You know what I mean? And he's like, but Angela, I mean, if they got arrested, they were guilty, right? I mean, that's, and I was like, huh?
And that's what their belief is.
I was blown away. But that's the belief. The belief is if you got arrested, well, you had to have done it. And it could have been something just that you had nothing to do with it. You were just in that so-called wingspan. You were just, you know what I mean? Just so many different scenarios where you really shouldn't have been arrested. And then you know, some of them succumb to the pressure of, look, just plead guilty and, you know, we'll get this thing off your, you know, and you don't have any money to fight it. You in just bad situation. You be like,
I mean, you get a public defender that tells you to please so you can get out.
So you can get out.
Or you don't want to lose your job.
You know what I mean?
And people say that's where I think that, and it's hard for, and I think the best thing, I say it all the time, the best thing that ever happened to America was Trump. Because he took the tablecloth off and everybody saw, and what it made was white people for once had to look at as America for who it actually is, well, who she is. And what happened with that, they saw the same thing we saw for a change, but it's hard for a white person to understand it when, in my neighborhoods that I've lived in, how many times you walked in the middle of your street drinking a beer and your neighbor's cutting the lawn and you bring him over a beer and then you and him sit in the middle of the street and maybe an officer's cruising through the neighborhood and you step out the way and then the officer stops, hey, you want a Coke or water? And you go on the side and get a water for the officer and drive off. That same thing happens in certain areas, black areas. We're both going to jail for drinking a beer in public. Those are the type things that occur that nobody looks at, and that's where the letter of a law can be abused. But when you get a felon that's committing a felonious act, or if you get, and people got to look at, we got to quit Monday morning quarterbacking. Look at the actual footage, and make sure when you look at the footage, you don't look at the good part, well, that's the bad part. Look at what led up to it, look at the end, look at the fact that the officer rendered aid, look at what else happened. Look at the actions of everybody around him. You're saying that girl, like I go back to the shooting of a young lady that was 16. It was tragic. But you got to look at how many adults that knew her, how many adults that were there that allowed that to escalate to the point, too, a man ran up and kicked the lady in the head. But all people want to focus at that an officer stopped somebody that was committing a felony. That's a textbook example of use of force on a third party. That's like textbook. You can people aren't going to do it, but you can take that clip and show that in a use of force class in any academy and teach from it. That's a classic example. It was reactionary shooting at his best. He saw the threat, he dealt with it. He identified it, he dealt with it. When you view the body cam, his body cam footage of that incident, and you see when a knife comes into view and you see the shots. For the people that said it was too many shots, he stopped shooting when her body dropped. Any major academy in America teaches that. You shoot until the threat disappears. That means it's dealt with.
I'm going to agree with you on about 66% of that statement because I'm with you on the shooting.
Yeah.
Because looking at the video, old girl had the knife. She was about to stab the other young lady that had the dog in her hand. Dude was a good shot. I give him that too. But to ask people to look at the adults that raised them, that's a lot.
Oh, no, I'm not asking that, but I'm saying as a people. You see, that's one thing I want to correct. We can't change our America until we start looking at our own.
Yeah, I'm all the way in about cleaning up our own. I've been saying it. We need to clean up our own backyard, and it's now become to where we have to damn near clean up our front yard because some of the stupid stuff that happens usually would happen in the backyard, but now the stupid stuff is up front. So yeah, I do believe we have to start cleaning up our own backyard, our own front yard. We have to do that because of the when we first started this podcast, me and this man right here said, we have the eyes and ears of America right now. While we had the eyes and ears, we were still doing some really, really stupid stuff. Should any of that result in death? No. And I again, I'm with you in regards to. A lot of people's gonna say, "Why ain't he shooting the legs? Why ain't he shooting the hand? Why ain't he run up and grab the knife?" Well, the thing is, it was if he didn't shoot and she had to stab the other girl, then you was gonna have, well, I mean, it's a possibility you was gonna have somebody else that was dead, and then the other young lady would end up going to jail, but that police officer would have been ridiculed for that also.
Been more than ridiculed.
Yeah, I'm with you on that part.
Or he would have shot her after he killed her. She
But
probably would have kept on or turned around with the knife. But what I was saying about that, I'm not diminishing her death. What I'm saying is some things I've heard. People say, well, why did he shoot her so many times? Because if you notice, she didn't drop to the fourth shot.
yeah, he shot her to keep her from that knife going
to
into
keep
the
it
other
in.
young
As soon
lady.
as the knife, as soon as she dropped, he didn't shoot.
That's what I feel anyway. That's my opinion on
Shoot
that.
all the way into the ground.
I'm with you on
he
that one.
stopped shooting when she dropped. And that's a proper shoot. It's sad that the young lady had to lose her life, but her actions put her there. Adults that were there could have prevented it and didn't.
Yeah, see,
What I want to see is us start policing ourselves.
that's what I was going to say too. I really feel that a lot of the things that we want, and it's not going to happen overnight, but you have to start. We have to get back to seeing somebody doing something stupid and saying, hey, bruh, or hey, young lady, why are you doing that? We have to get back to that. I think we got away from it.
I mean, you don't think it, you know we did.
Yeah, I know we got away from it.
But because a lot of it though, is because some of these jokers are so disrespectful.
Yeah.
To the adults.
I mean,
You know what I mean? And unless you are, you know, and I just say this because I remember I was at a football game, not this year because we couldn't, but previous, and there was it was a football game, and there was a bunch of kids, and all of them, you know, with the pants down, which is
that's another circle.
It's the worst thing.
We've already had it. We're gonna have it
worst fad
again.
in the history of clothing, but they were around a bunch of women and kids, cussing like it was nobody's business.
Mm-hmm.
Just, you know what I mean?
Fuck this, nigga, this.
And
nigga.
I
You want him to call you a nigga, but you
I
didn't
got
do
up, and I got up, all five of me, and I went over there with them guys, and they were all young cats. You know what I mean? Anywhere from 16 to 21, 22. And I said, listen, fellas, do y'all feel any kind of remorse whatsoever about how y'all are talking and conducting yourself around all these women and kids? You know what I mean? And they looked at me, and they were like, you know what? You're right.
It is.
But look where you live.
I was gonna say.
Look where
Well,
you live.
No.
I don't
Let everybody know where you live.
These-
No.
Not your address,
these-
where you live.
I'm not
These
in.
were all still. There was nothing about them kids that said, "Well, they are good suburban." You know what I mean?
Suburban.
What game was it? What game was it?
Huh?
What game was it?
I don't even remember.
But it makes a difference because
But my point is, it was just. But you know,
You're right.
I was bold enough to do it because I was just sitting there like, come on, man. You know what I mean? It's like, come on, I'm looking around all these people. I'm like, come on, man. I look at all these kids. I'm like, come on, man.
I'm gonna have a disclaimer for the show.
Well, I know what you're gonna say. Hey man, there's fences out there where you live at. Hey man, y'all grass is cut.
Yeah, what it good.
But you still
No,
there's
I mean,
people that live in the project.
Don't do that at Lakewood.
There's that right there.
But
see, that's what I'm saying.
But that's the problem.
That right there. When you say don't do it in Lakewood,
I'm just joking. I should have made it.
You're not joking because
serious, but
there are
joking.
some
But
because
that
of
feel
the
that way.
level, the thought process of some of the people.
And that's what goes wrong.
But that's the problem.
And we don't call that out, but that's part
But that's
of
the
the
problem.
Because you got to realize that I've seen people try to correct things like in certain zones, older people will say something to them kids, and the kids jump through
Disrespect.
Now don't get me wrong. In any zone, you can try and correct some people. And I ain't gonna just say kids, because there's some grown ass men out there acting asses.
Yeah, but they're still kids.
You can try and correct someone anywhere, and you still might get the reaction you wasn't hoping for. Now, hopefully, you don't get the reaction where everybody jump on you, beat you up. But the thing is, if we don't get back to it, because let's face it, man. We have kids raising kids. So what's happening is the people that actually are grown, and when I say grown, I'm not talking about age. I'm talking about somebody that's went through the rites of passage of life, and they are at that point to where they can command some respect or be able to give some type of advice, because you've lived a life to where you can actually say something. We've gotten to the point to where those people won't say anything
for fear.
And I promise you, I understand why you're not.
For what word you use?
Fear.
And why is that?
Because of violence that occurs in a certain demographics and age group, like African American age group.
So now, with that answer, sorry, JT, because he just said when he said the word fear, just triggered another thought process. So
I know you're going. Go ahead. It just hit me. Went all the way through my body. Go ahead.
I'm being honest.
But due to that word fear, right? So how do we go about it when I want to say this because I don't want to justify nothing, right? And it came up again on another side conversation we had in terms of should black people answer calls in black neighborhoods as opposed to white people answering calls in black neighborhoods because of that word
fear.
All right, and
does that because I think we all can agree that that's what leads to most of these unarmed black men and women being
totally
killed.
Agree. And I'll hit about 5 points real quick.
Go ahead.
One, it goes back to the fact of what I said about black males getting arrested for petty crimes or victimless crimes. And it's disproportionate to the people that are white for the stop for the same thing. And you read it, go back and have these Black Lives Matter people pull reports and start reading these reports. And see, when you see Jody or Biff or Spiff not getting arrested and he got caught with weed, and go back and then look at that officer's arrest of black males for the same, and that's the type of exploratory things Black Lives Matter could do that would matter. But I think too, we have to, that's one thing you could do. Two, you have to it hasn't actually been done, but let us define what woke is. Let us define what the Black Lives Matter movement is. Don't have other people write your narrative or underwrite your narrative. And to me, woke just can't be the fact that you're against the establishment, America sucks or whatever you want to see that as. Have them actually, let's get a definition of woke. And one thing to me, if you're black and woke, you know your history. Your black history. You know that African Americans built this country. So the thing is, we are Americans. All this talk about go back to Africa or do this, and black people that are saying that no, we built this shit. It's our shit. We should stay here, and we should prosper. Now let's correct the issues that are wrong with it, so we can have Black Wall Streets again. And the other thing is we have to own up to it. But if we start having we can get a TikTok video. We sat up here and did the right thing with this bottle and flipped it and landed in the bottle and filled up and sat it down. You'd have a TikTok people doing that all day long tomorrow to see if it's working to get 1 million views. Let's just start it here, or we start putting it out on every show. Let's get back to, okay, stand up real quick. When we were growing up, anytime you saw a black man, what you do? God damn, shit. Right. Not just your friend. Anytime you saw somebody black, or it was a group of 5 black brothers, shit, it'd take 10 hours. Right. You got to adapt. Because think about it.
Yeah, you're right.
If I came in this room and I dapped you two up back in the day, if I didn't dap him up, that was what?
It's a slight.
A slight, disrespectful.
Yeah.
And that's what we need to get back to, is truly loving each other, not talking about it, or not talking about it when it's popular, when a black criminal has been killed by the police, it's popular. Make it everyday thing. And if you see that, I think what happened is African-American males, and I'm just saying African-American males because that's the biggest part of the problem, although African-American females are getting more violent. But I just think that we don't love each other.
And that's it's funny you say that, bro, because I'm making it a point, because I was one that would walk into a room and I would speak to a couple of people, usually ones that I knew, and didn't speak to the other ones. I'm now making it a point to when I walk into a room, I'm speaking to everybody in there. What's up, bro? How you doing? JT. I'm making it a point to do that because, like you said, showing love actually brings people's guard down to where then you can actually speak and people will actually listen to you. So again, when we're talking about, seeing somebody doing wrong and going up to them and saying something, that's part of the love also.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Looking out for one another is part of the love also. This show, we talk about things in the community, things that's happening to us, that type of thing, but we try and also make sure that we know. I would say 75 to 80% of the issues that we have is within our own race.
Mm-hmm.
I've called it racism within our own race.
Yes.
I really think we're probably, I can't say because I'm not in any, I'm black. That's the race I am. Mm-hmm. But I'm willing to bet that we're probably the only race that has it. You go into, white cats, they could be somebody that's from the country. They could be somebody that lived in the woods all their life. They could be somebody that's on Wall Street. They're going to rock together, period.
Yeah.
For some reason,
Jews,
we will look at somebody in suburbia or look at somebody on Wall Street and have something against them. Mm-hmm. Or if we don't have anything against them, we won't even open ourselves up to them. And when I say open yourself up, I'm not saying give them your life, but I'm saying speak. Mm-hmm. And you don't have to speak and be domineering when you speak. Just speak. Just like you just said, walking into a room, you see some cats, yo, what's up, bro? How you doing? Hey, brother, how you doing? How you doing? Look at some of the blaxploitation movies. Like you said, man, them dudes walking to the bar in them long leather coats and leather hats, and they speaking to each other, and them clothes was hot. Mm-hmm. Hot, and when I say hot, I'm talking about temperature, not hot that they look good. They was hot, but yet they spoke to everybody when they walked in. What's up, cat daddy? What's up, bro? Giving people names. I do that all the time. But a lot of the stuff that's happening, a lot of it could be, I'm not going to say erased, but a lot of it could be helped if we just started looking within our own race and just start doing things within ourselves.
It's respect, man. Respect and self-respect.
We're waiting for somebody else to treat us a certain way when we don't treat each other a certain way.
Let me go through a couple of these real quick.
Go ahead.
First thing, number one fan brought up earlier in the show about, did y'all see Deion Sanders noted that not one person from the HBCUs was drafted this year? Not even one. Now,
wow.
I will say this, in my opinion, one of the reasons is the fact that HBCUs didn't get to play. And a lot of them playing spring football.
Playing right now.
And so none of those guys usually are not going to be on the level that they can skip, opt out, and get the same looks that jokers at LSU, Alabama going to get.
They'd already had their
But
looks.
I do think that's an issue, but I do believe that not playing this season had a factor in that. A couple of guys, Viande and DC, pointed out about the police officer question earlier about the training. Viande says the same needs for, and you're right, Jaron, it's a different generation, I agree. It's the same needs for teachers as it is police officers, and they still got to go through the same training. The same schooling and additional training and certification, what have you. And and unfortunately, both of those jobs are highly underpaid and full demand, but highly underpaid.
I've said it 11 times up here. Law enforcement, education, two most underpaid jobs in America, and those are, let's face it, damn near the most important jobs in America. BJ Bowman, shout out to you, bruh. I need to get you up here. Real talk. This man went from rapping about booty music to now he's in the pulpit, so he can talk about some things. Real talk. He's a mentor, talk to kids and everything and younger people, so we got to get him on the show.
It is the same demand, Viande, but, I think the police officers just, I don't really know how you solve that problem. I think it's just, I don't know, the lack of training. I mean, I think that's a major issue throughout the country, throughout all police officers. And the only way you're gonna ever solve that is, like you said, the National Training Academy. And I think the federal government has to step in. They really want to take it serious. They have to step in. And I'm gonna say this to your last point, Nita. She said the best thing that happened to America was President Obama. He wanted to turn on the lights and expose the fact that America's still racist.
Why did Obama do that?
Well, I was just gonna say she's gonna be mad, but I can't say that's President Obama did a lot of great things, and I won't take nothing from him.
Healthcare is the only thing he did.
But he did a couple of. I mean, he had a couple of.
Feminists.
Well, he had the Attorney General do a couple of what's the word I'm looking for? Reviews, and the Attorney General had this big review of racism in America and the proportionate arrest and all that stuff.
What changes came from that?
That's the flip side of what I'm about to say. That's why I say she's gonna probably not be. But the fact is, nothing really came from any of those reviews and what have you. And the things that we're talking about right now, I think President Obama failed at in terms of acting on. If he did reviews, you got stuff back. What did you do to act on those things? What did you do? Like we just said, we did a 50. Now I understand. He didn't have the House or the Senate, for 6 of his 8 years, so he was handicapped in a lot of situations, and so that's the only reason I give any kind of leeway to it. But there are what's the thing that the presidents can do, the executive orders. Mm-hmm. There could have been some executive orders.
I just did too.
Whether the idiot tried to turn him over when he came in office or not, he still could have done. For example, the body cams situation. Yeah. There's a lot of things that could have been done.
Changed it, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. You gotta justify why would you change that, John? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I think President Obama could have done. There's nothing that was done. And I've had this argument several times with old Hank. First time he came in, and he because he has a lot of negative things to say about the president. I'll never talk like he talks, but upon doing research, there are a lot of things that he could have done that he did not do.
First 2 executive orders.
Yeah. I mean,
was Obama allowed to do executive orders?
That's my point. He didn't do any executive orders, and he could have done some. And in the first 4 years, I get it. You know what I mean? You don't want to be the black guy.
Second years, you do what the hell you want to do.
You know what I mean?
You want to do.
Anytime we get a job, we don't want to be the black guy that he come in and do anything. You know what I mean? But them second 4, man, what did you have to lose? What did you have to lose to go all in? So, Neeb, you got to respond to that. I'm reading because I just feel like he could have done way more.
But I want to see what Joe Biden
that second term.
Joe Biden does when he signed. He looked out for Asian American and Pacific Islanders.
Immediately.
He looked out for transgenders. I want to see if he does one for African Americans.
Let me say this though. This is what I was gonna say about the Tim Scott, Kamala Harris thing. I feel like they did that and said that kind of justified what I'm saying, to justify not giving out money to for setting aside certain laws.
To say it was not racist?
Yeah.
No, Tim Scott did it because of what he believes. Tim Scott believes that, bro. Don't get that confused. Tim Scott did a 15, 20-minute speech where he literally contradicted himself in every new sentence. Every new sentence was a contradiction. We're not racist, however I got pulled over. We're not this, however I got followed in the store. We're not, you know what I mean? It was like, dude, what are you saying? What are you saying, man? Sit your monkey tail down. Do you sound just as ignorant? Come on, man. I like to know. I told my uncle this, Uncle Lou. I say, man, I would love to know his parents' belief. You know what I mean? I don't know his history, but I love to know. Do your parents believe what you're saying? Is that how you grew up? Were you that way as a child? How were you in high school? I really would like to know. You couldn't have always been this guy. You could have always been this guy.
And made it this far.
Come on, man. I just find it hard to believe, man.
Somebody
it's just
should have knocked you out.
That female who run around saying the most ignorant junk, and she was a protester back then when she was in high school. You know what I mean? Then all of a sudden, you caught into the right person, somebody put someone in your pocket, and now all of a sudden, you so anti-black. You know what I mean? What's that? Candace Owens. Come on, man. She
Help at all.
bruh.
Yeah, so like I really just think that we need to start policing ourselves. And if we do that, I mean, and it's not that we, like I said, teaching our kids how to react to the police. And everybody said, well, they shouldn't. It should just be fair. We're sitting up here protesting saying it's not fair, but then you're saying don't teach our kids how to survive an interaction with a cop that may be racist. The majority of them aren't.
I don't think that's what
kids.
they're saying. I think they're saying, I will teach them.
But you shouldn't have to.
Exactly.
But
And that's facts.
Review the last 2 times I brought that up. Everybody already chimes in saying, no. And I'm all for it because the more of a black 10%, and you too would be considered the black 10%, when the black 10% says something, they got to start being responsible for those words. Because once you say it, it's an impression that you put. And now with social media, it's whoever does the right thing is the one, whoever gets the best TikTok video, or the person who can say it with a rhyme. That's the person everybody runs with, and they don't look at that person's character. They don't look at that person's stature. They don't look at his moral character, his intestinal fortitude, or his body of work, what he or she's done in their life. And that's a litmus test as a people we need to start making all our black leaders deal with. Everybody knew that Jesse Jackson took Operation Push Funds and paid for his concubine, his side chick, a condo. Everybody knows that. Jet even put it out there. Jet had a small article about it. But you wonder why he wasn't prosecuted for it? Why? Why Operation Push didn't lose their status? No, because he kept Negroes under control. Al Sharpton pisses on every tree in the forest and hope it's a good one. And when he does that, like the Toronto Brawley deal, when he does stuff like that, when it is needed and we need attention, you've watered it down because you've yelled wolf 29 times. And that's what I mean by Black Lives Matter needs a corraler. I was there doing the protests. It just happened last year in Atlanta, and I was on front line. I was riding the scene incident. I was in charge of one of the arrests, was Zone 1's arrest teams. And I'll tell you this, when we were in there and we were under siege and they're throwing rocks and everything else, you know how many white faces? There's a white girl that went around and handed out hammers. Yeah. And the guy that hit me with a brick was white. And a lot of the protests were anarchists who came in. Now, if y'all are so anti-white, how the hell could you take direction from some white people to come in and hand out hammers? You should have gave them back. But when the cameras came around and when everybody talked about it, even black leaders didn't put it out. That came out weeks later. Those are the type of things that we can't allow to happen as a people, because you got to realize we're 12.5, 13% of America's population. If you look at the amount of us that are incarcerated, the black male to female ratio, Those are start things. I'm not saying don't deal with police brutality because it exists. We need to deal with it. But there's so many other things. The way that we're going to be more on par when we start letting our economic clout dictate the flow. Imagine if Americans say for a week, everybody eats in. And I'm not saying it in a racist way, but it's okay for Chinese Americans to deal with Chinese. They can have their own market, and nobody says, why is there a Korean market on Buford Highway? Nobody says, well, why is there so many Korean stores? Nobody says, yeah, or Hispanic. Everybody know, and I got a very good one I go to get the authentic. It's in the back of a grocery store, the real tacos. But my point is that when we do it or we even suggest it, we're wrong. And what I'm saying, I want to see some black leaders have some organization, Black Lives Matter, and says, okay, next time we have a city that it's proven, not when the black people just say, okay, it was a bad shoot, but when it's been proven it's a bad shoot, let's shut down economically that city. Black people don't spend a dime until it changes, meaning that you spend time to get to work, you spend time to eat at home, but you shut down unless it's a black stores. Now, we don't want to be stupid, but you patronize your own stores, but you don't put a dime in anything else other than a black location. When we have these stores in the black communities that sell knives, as many stabbings that occur in Atlanta, and you have these Asian and well, they're all Asian because Pakistanis, Indians, Koreans, people that aren't us, go in our neighborhoods and they sell drug paraphernalia and they sell knives. You want to protest something, protest that. And if we start doing that and putting an economic penalty to our protest, it'll mean something because in reality, we cry wolf so many times, there's some shit I don't even pay attention to anymore. I do because of the show more so. But it's because I know what the reaction is going to be. I was really into Black Lives Matter when it first started. But when you let somebody, that would be like, if Martin Luther King, when he was marching, let a Klansman take off his hood and jump in the mic and jump in the march and get the mic and say, hey, we're against this. No, he wouldn't let him speak. That's what I'm talking about. You need to bring it more under control because hate is hate. When you have black groups that are teaching black youth to hate and hate police, that's dangerous. It's stupid. It's dangerous because the majority of police officers do their job right. And what's happening in America, whether we want to own up to it or not, and this is the thing, it's like black people want math to count when you're talking about how many black shootings it is, but you don't want for the same stats to count when you look at the increase in homicides and ag assaults in the black cities once you start persecuting the police unjustly.
It's good stuff right here.
And the stats increase. Look at Atlanta.
So wait. So what you're saying is, because I can hear somebody questioning me. What's the day? Thursday. Because there's the murders and the black on black crime, it's gonna stay that way because it's happening there and the police are not coming because it's happening there?
No, what I'm saying is we need to acknowledge that as a people. That's one of the backlashes that has occurred because if we don't correct it, what you're seeing in the city of Atlanta now, 2019, there was 99 homicides.
Oh, let's talk about last weekend.
There was, 2019 was 99. 2020 was 157.
And that's during a lockdown.
There was 79. There was 79 homicides, I think, when I left on July the 18th of 2020. And it ended up with 157. I left in July 18th. Do the math. Do the math at the number of homicides. And if you look at the number of shootings and homicides that are occurring this year, and what's happening is, and this is something that black leaders don't talk about, and it affects us, is 911 call responses are the same, pretty much the same, because 911 calls don't stop crime. 911 calls is somebody responding to something that's already happened, meaning if you call because the cat's in a tree, medical issue, whatever, somebody broke in your house. Now, what stops and lowers crime is proactive policing. That's non-existent in most black cities right now. And that's why crime is increasing. Nobody wants to talk about it, but there's a pink elephant in the room that everybody's fucking ignoring. And that black 10% and those black lives people that go back to the campus, go back to their jobs, go back wherever, are affecting people that can't afford to be affected that way. Because police officers are withdrawn. They're saying hands up, they're saying hands off. And I talk to quite a lot of officers still, because a lot of them that worked under me and different officers that know me. And it's sad because you've gotten to the point where officers, black and white, not just white, are fearful if they take the correct action, like the action that officer took with that 16-year-old. It's sad, and I'm not saying she deserved. Of course, nobody deserves to die. We're not judging. Nobody's judging jury. But in that situation, it's textbook what you're supposed to do when a third party is in danger. And now you have officers all over the country. Somebody just said tonight who's still active. I saw them earlier today. And they said, if I was in that situation, she's going to get stabbed, I'm going to render aid and call her for it. I said, no, you wouldn't. Yes, I would. And it's an officer I knew that used to be proactive. He said, LT, it's like that with everybody now. Look at the stats. I respect. Chief Bryant is an outstanding chief. Chief Shields was. Chief Turner was. Those are some of the chiefs I worked under. Bell's my favorite. But when you see that situation, and if you ask what are the stats prior to and after with all the crack units or what units used to produce, and you see that arrest numbers are down and people ignoring that. So there's two ways to look at it. Either you got to admit you're making a lot of bad arrests and unnecessary arrests, or while all of a sudden something that was illegal and arrestable offense you're not doing now.
Hey, I'm gonna pause right there, Jake. We want to do that next week.
Oh, gonna do that next week?
Yeah. I don't want you to get too deep into that, because yeah, because I can see where it's going. Nita said Black Lives Matter and wait a minute, where'd it go? Black Lives Matter and the movement were infiltrated by certain whites who had their own agendas. No one talking about defunding the police till a white person said that, white woman did it. Yeah. That can be the. I definitely think they've been infiltrated.
Exactly.
But
and nobody's calling that out.
Yeah.
All right, this comment here, my man BJ said. He said he most definitely agrees with you, MJ. The problem is getting black and brown people who have become physically and mentally dependent on those things financially to buy in on not spending money in these places that may be owned by people who may be racist or supportive of laws and policies that oppress black and brown people.
That's when the black 10% and black people need to talk to uncleans. That's when the same effort and the same energy you put into protesting, police shootings bad or good, you need to put that same energy into making it effective and making it effective. Imagine now, if there's a black police shooter, like say when George Floyd was murdered. Imagine if that whole city and every black city in America would have said, we're going to shut down spending any money in anything other than a black-owned business or to sustain yourself during that period. Because we're the biggest hand-to-mouth people it is. We get in our hand and we spend it. Now imagine if every African-American refused to buy McDonald's until the McDonald's chief CEO spoke out against whatever we want them to speak out against.
Ooh, imagine that.
Because hell, everybody knows McDonald's only exists because of black people now. And poor white people.
Yeah.
They're the only people who eat that trash.
Viande got some
fries,
Viande,
good motherfucker.
Yeah, they got the best fries around.
Yeah, that's my cheat, baby. That's my cheat.
Little fresh fries.
I got to roll with Chick-fil-A, baby.
That salt, man, it's like a little powder of salt on them.
They salted right.
Boy, that little powder salt, man.
Viande said Tim Scott did that for the millions of dollars he was getting from the Republican National Convention for being their token. He tokened well.
Yes, he did.
He also said, and this is deep beyond that, he said how Obama led to the in-your-face racism that you saw from his predecessor. And right before that, he had said that Obama brought on the systematic racism that is embedded in America. He brought it out. And there was a certain demographic that could not accept a black man being president. No, that's so deep. Because when you think about it that way,
point, just as very race, his ethnicity caused it. Yes, I will agree with that.
Yeah, I didn't think about it, but the way you put it, he's 100% correct.
Old Shockwave, Beyonce?
Yeah.
What's up, bro? Shockwave for life, boy.
And they also said the executive order that Obama didn't sign. Oh, they were.
Only time they've been more upset was with the OJ verdict.
Boy, the executive order that Obama didn't sign don't matter. The racism privilege that ultimately brought out was his legacy based on the aftermath. That's deep.
Healthcare be his well.
That's deep though when you think about it.
Healthcare, because everybody deserves healthcare.
That's deep when you think about it, because him being president for 8 years pissed white folks off so bad.
They had to come with it after that, boy.
They had to go.
That it helped Trump with his MAGA BS.
Yeah.
And it did bring out that racism. When you think about it that way, that's very good point.
But see, this is what I hate about Black Lives Matter and black leaders in America. When we had them on the ropes, instead of going for the knockout blow, we let them escape.
Yeah.
Because when they marched on the Capitol, what did the Black 10% and Black Lives Matter? Oh, look at them march! Look at them march! And we let whites write the narrative of who they were.
Absolutely.
Every white commentator wanted to say, "Oh, they're actually Antifas. They were Antifas, and they were goddamn rednecks and trailer park and convicts and just devout racists."
Right.
You saying we should have took pictures of everybody and posted it in?
No, that, but also the fact that we should have had a black leader come out and say, nah, that wasn't the case, and list out the occupation and what every one of them did. And when you do it like that, that's why a lot of white people I know try to defract saying, that was actually Antifa. How many times did you hear that when it first happened?
I see what you're saying. Okay.
Okay, and then when Antifa didn't work, then they went to, that was just white trash. Because, white people drop the white trash word as quick as they say nigga.
Sure.
Now, I know
And then that's what happened, so we let them off the hook. We had them on the ropes.
we way over time, but let me ask you this.
Oh, yeah.
In regards to Black Lives Matter. Do we know who's in charge of Black Lives Matter? Or is it just some initials?
They have different factions.
Hashtags.
different
factions all over the country.
Okay.
So different people in charge. There is no, I don't think there's one quote unquote leader. Every state has their own Black Lives Matter president or whatever, what have you.
All right, so
Black Lives Matter is, the fact they're getting funded for, it's a lot of iffy stuff with that. You know what I mean?
So, all right, we're in Atlanta, we're in Georgia. So, anybody out there that knows who's ever's quote unquote in front of Black Lives Matter, the Georgia chapter, y'all reach out to us. Let's talk.
Have them a show.
Let's talk. Because I promise you, to me, it just looked like a hashtag. And people getting together, like you said, when something happened. We're talking about a further reach that they should do. And it's got me thinking, well, okay, who is the one that can get that going?
That's a good point.
Because I honestly, I just thought it pretty much was a hashtag and a whole bunch of people getting together.
They actually got factions. They got people who actually run. There's actually somebody who sets up, they set out an email chain of where they're going to be protesting at. You know what I mean? All that stuff is orchestrated.
Well, they're good at that.
All right, we need some interns out there. We need some interns for classic conversation with JT.
I did see a message about
Look this stuff
Mitch
up, man,
McConnell. Mitch McConnell
we need to know that. I would love to have a conversation with somebody that that's making some decisions or making the movement of Black Lives Matter, where they're going, where they're getting together at, that type of deal.
I don't care if we block everything. Executive order. That's like you said,
But I'd like to see Biden do it for African Americans, the same thing he did for Asian Americans, Pacific Islanders, and transgenders. Because you got to realize, if you put it on those things, when it becomes a federal violation, you're talking about real time. And then I just hate the fact that nobody black or anybody white, I got to quit saying we need to quit saying black. Anybody of conscience, I should say, allowed there to be thousands of people that marched on Washington, D.C. and were in that Capitol with all the cameras and all the facial recognition we have going on in the FBI, what they did, what they always do, because we got too many uncleans running our business instead of black people running it. How the hell think about it, 5,000 black people went in and busted into Congress in the Senate. 5,000 black people.
Man.
And you tell me if they came out with, well, here's 100 we're going to prosecute.
That's hard to even think about.
First of all, you be prosecuting the ones that ain't dead.
No, just say they didn't shoot.
Oh,
They didn't shoot. They
They
didn't
went
shoot.
black.
They weren't going to shoot. But my point is simply this. We're giving all those people a pass. What I want to see is the ones that are clearly identifiable that weren't prosecuted, and then I want to know what their job was and what favor was called in. No black leader, okay, Jesse Jackson, Run Jesse Run, and Al Nobody Sharpton should get their monkey asses up and do something positive like that. Because if you call that out, that's going to cover. What is that going to call out? What was the show about? White privilege.
They only showing up
white
if there's
privilege.
a funeral. I said that before. That's the only time they show up.
Yeah,
At a funeral.
At funerals, what's that of a black attorney?
That's
he follows any. Crump. Yeah. He's a race baiter. He's a race baiter.
He's the modern day Eminem.
Exactly. See, my whole point is simply this:
Reverend Bobblehead
that
Sharpton.
would show white privilege to the hilt, because when I identify Sykes, if Sykes was Caucasian and he owned the club that he owns and the other businesses he owns and makes the money he owns, but somehow you're clearly shown jumping up and down on the banister, but you weren't prosecuted. Now, nobody has came out and said that, but you know why? Because as a people, all you have to do is show us something shiny. And then we do the unclean dance, twisting with our mouth open, our tongue hang out. And you know what we say? Ooh, they prosecuting. No. Let's see, there's 1,000 people, and how many are being prosecuted now? There's thousands of people in there. But they use facial recognition cameras. There should be an audit of that. Let's see, but see what it is. They want to make that go away, because they won't be able to say it was derelicts and Antifa when they see that it was people with legit jobs that went there. And that's when all of America is going to have to acknowledge white privilege when they see people that look just like them. They got a good, clear conscience now because, oh, that was Trailer Park, or that was this, or that was that. You know, oh, there's a few good people in there, but most of them are crazy. No. When they see that was their neighbor, that was their barber, that was a guy that works a forklift in the factory, and they start digging them all, because we all know if 5,000, and I'm not saying they would, shooting, if they didn't shoot him, damn sure anybody that wasn't dead would be charged. And they wouldn't be going with these pussy-ass charges.
At
the highest.
And I'm not saying
federal crimes.
Anybody that took part in the organization of that, and what their total thing was, that's the guys with the flex cuffs. They were supposed to seize Congress people and change the course of what? History, but also how our government works, which is what? Treason. They should be charged with treason. And not a single black Run Jesse Run or any other black 10%, that's a true coon. The ones that dance and do exactly what it takes to defract from what's actually happening in America. Because all it does is keep the racial divide happening.
What causes that for them people, man, and I said this at the beginning of this podcast, is the almighty dollar.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Once that money gets involved, it changes the dynamic of those organizations. It changed the dynamic of Jesse. It changed the dynamic when money gets involved. When they get to getting money and Joker starts paying you to do X, Y, Z, it changes the dynamic. To answer the question, Black Lives Matter, what she said, started by 4 sisters after the Trayvon Martin shooting. So that's how they started. Black people to go out. There's a last comment right here. Hold on, Beyond they gave it another one here. 2 more comments. If black people were to go out and advertise and show a position of getting guns.
No, that's it. That's very ignorant when you're 13% of the population and you're talking about getting and starting a race war or anything.
I'm trying to read the whole thing before you say that. Getting guns to defend themselves.
Against what? Against what?
You'll see gun reform
White
bills.
guys that did the drive-by
Saying
shit
they to
last
change
week,
the
it's not doing one.
gun reform bills. Congress support. You will see our gun reform bills would be the quickest thing to go through Congress. Yeah, if black folks were going to get their guns, yeah.
That's a he stole that from a Dave Chappelle joke.
And there is so much money in politics, too much money in politics.
Exactly.
Jesse
I do agree
Jackson
with that.
has MS now.
What does that have to do with it? I'm talking about what he did in the past. I'm not giving him a pass.
Families of George Floyd.
I'm not gonna give him a pass.
Call them. All right. Great comments, everybody.
It's Taco Tuesday at Uptown.
Yeah, Taco Tuesday.
Y'all down at
MJ, you
Uptown,
got anything else, man?
Y'all
That's
get
my
these chicken
taco.
There's a
tacos,
shrimp
bro.
on left.
That, triple up? Okay.
Yeah.
All right,
JT don't eat
my
seafood.
comments, and I'll say like I always do, if you believe that you've been involved in police brutality, or if the officer was rude, or anything where you think you weren't treated as a citizen should be treated, first thing you do is call for a supervisor. No, you want to physically have a supervisor, and then you do a follow-up call, but you also go down and make an official complaint on that officer. Officers that do it right aren't worried about a complaint because they got their body cam. They're going to say, no, this is why I did X, Y, and Z. You're going to learn a little bit about how the system works, but it will be investigated. But too many times we've seen people come up with and I think a lot of it's bullshit, but a lot of people come up with these old long ass things where they think that they were violated and they never felt so bad. And when you ask a simple thing, did you complain? And these are educated black people. They say no. And what it causes are...
Did you complain to the department? They complain to everybody.
Yeah, complain to the department. Exactly. Complain to the department, and you will see a change. You'll see a change. And if you don't get any response, proper response from if you're a smaller department and they don't respond, that's what the FBI is for. You can file a civil rights or accusation of a civil rights violation, and it'll be investigated by an FBI agent. That's all you have to do, people. There's avenues out there. I'm going to get more involved in it as far as that part. I'll have links that you can click on, and you'll know where you can do these things. But it's up to people to do that in every city. Find out what the internal affairs number is. And people, don't be an asshole. If you speeding and doing something stupid and you get pulled over by the police, don't tie up the system because you hate the fact that you got a $300 ticket. Let it be for that person that actually has been violated. That's all I got.
Okay. I don't really have anything else, man. We covered just about everything I wanted to cover. But still vote. About a year left, a year and a half before some of these seats come back up. Keep voting. Keep registering to vote. It's easy.
Hey, man, these chicken tacos down here are delicious. Just giving it to you for real. Real quick, my man BJ said in regards to folks storming the Capitol, they're not going to arrest and prosecute that many Republican votes and create enemies to their racial interests. Makes a lot of sense there.
But we need to push that issue.
My thing is, love what MJ just said, man, and like Angelo said, he's undefeated in regards to that. Nobody is reporting these things, and I understand what's going to be said. Why should we have to report? We shouldn't be mistreated to start off with. But guess what? We haven't tried reporting it. So let's try that. Let's try reporting the misjustices when it happened to us when you get pulled over. Yes, if you were speeding and you got a $300 ticket, you still shouldn't be mistreated. But that also doesn't mean that you should treat the officer like hell. If you're mistreated, report it, pay your tickets, and just report it.
Yeah.
I still stand on, we have to start policing. I'm not even going to say policing. I'm going to say cleaning up, because when you say policing, sometimes us as a people get scared. Oh, I ain't doing nothing with the police. You hear police and y'all like to just go mute. We need to clean up our backyards and our front yards. We need to start doing things within our own community. We need to start, I don't want to say teaching, but it actually is teaching, asking people to do it differently. And they're going to say, well, why should I? I'll say, because you haven't. Maybe if you do it differently, you might see a different outcome. You just never know. We have to start doing things within our own community. It's a classic conversation. We started off with white privilege and we went about 865 degrees around. But
normal
everything,
for us.
it's normal. Everything that we spoke about, man, was on point. Again, this is dialogue within our community, hoping to spark a solution. Couple of things about me. Shell of a Man, stage play about men hiding issues within would make them actually portray the shell of themselves. That play is, we're getting back out. We are going to be out on the middle of August. I'll put some more information out. I want to make sure I say the right dates. I'm also in a movie, and we are going to be premiering on Father's Day. Stay tuned to Classic Conversations with JT and Lo, also on my page. Because of the pandemic, trying to get a location is a little different, but we know we're going to do it on the 20th. We just have to get the right location. That's going to happen. That's going to be premiering that day. We're talking about supporting black business and all of that. All of you running to the movies, even during this pandemic, and you want to go see Tom Cruise, come see JT. How about that? So, that's gonna do it, man.
Joe Claire this weekend, man. Former mayor of Rap City, host of Rap City. Joe Claire this weekend. Yeah,
snap.
Gonna be good. Yeah, it'll be a Thursday through Sunday.
Funny dude.
Next week, of course, Monique. Sorry, show's sold out. So if you get your tickets, I warned you. May 14th and 15th.
I'm going for the standing room.
That's the weekend following.
I'll be standing
Mother's Day
room
weekend, right?
Now this is Mother's Day weekend right here.
What?
Yeah.
Oh damn!
This weekend? Sunday.
As in this coming up Sunday.
Yeah.
Damn, dude.
Sound like some cash gonna be given on my end. So yeah, that's gonna do it for Classic Conversations, man. Next week we are going to talk about the rise in murder.
Crime in general.
Crime in general, but there was how many shootings in Atlanta last weekend? One day, I think it was 8 this past weekend. Just in Atlanta alone.
There's quite a few.
We're just gonna talk about that, man, and see what do we.
I think my uncle said Baltimore had like 15, 21. It was something.
Just want to see what do we feel is the driving force behind it. It could be again, opinions, man. It's just opinions. It could be people sitting in the house all the time and now they're getting out and losing their mind. Just like with the Black Lives Matter thing, I thought that most of that was criminals actually getting a reason to be criminalistic. A lot of that had nothing to do with Black Lives Matter. So we're going to talk about that next week. I promise you, we will start at least by 8:40. Might not be 8:30, but it won't be 8:50 like it was tonight. So, hey, appreciate everyone tuning in. We will put the links up later.
Man, great responses.
Yes, great responses, great comments. We're gonna put the link up so that you can view it again. Actually, have some other people to view it. If you see it up, please share it. We need the views, and we need you to go to urbanatlanta.com and subscribe.
And subscribe.
That's going to do it for Classic Conversations with JT and Lo. And we are out.
And ask a cop.
MJ.
Feel the water flow.
Soul cleansing. Soul
Everybody
cleansing.
got problems. Everybody got problems. No matter which soul.
Soul cleansing. Soul
That's why we
cleansing.
gotta call them. That's why we gotta call them. My spirit's so asshole.
Soul cleansing. Soul.
Nearly lost my soul, nearly lost my faith. When I lost my brother, that's the day it went away. Mama cried, so did Granny did too. So lost, so hurt, I ain't know what to do. So I yell and I cuss her back, God, like why in the fuck? How could you do that? Bring that pain in my family. It's something we did. Tell me you mad at me, cause I can't deal. And it's hard to live without my brother, and it's hard to forgive, but still I pray. Feel the water flow. This is for the fire in your soul. We pray for better days, to live our lives and make a change. Feel the water flow. This is for the fire in your soul. In your soul, your soul, your soul. Feel the water flow. This is for the fire in your soul. We pray for better days.